She went the full 5 minutes with that one.
Hello!
I totally did that. Drag that intro on for as long as possible.
Not even on webcam on our own channel.
Oh my gosh! Can you give me a break? Do you know how fucking stressed I already am?
Do you know who he is?
You know who I am.
I'll be on camera in a minute. I literally just got back from the gym and I wasn't watching the time, so I'm sorry. It's my fault. I'm trying.
All right. What did we all do at the gym today?
I did pull-ups, and my arms hurt so much they can't fucking extend. And Phil, you asked me earlier if I was fasting. I forgot to eat. Went to the gym fasted, trained fasted.
That's a terrible idea. What is wrong with you?
Called being completely disorganized. I'm so disorganized. I'm trying to find my passport for Tampa. Can't find it. Turn my entire fucking flat upside down. The place is a mess. It's so messy. I hate it. Like I'm gonna spend all day tomorrow cleaning it up. But like, yeah. So now I gotta go to the passport office. I gotta book an appointment and try and get my passport like renewed.
Oh shit! I hope you get that in time. That's kind of important.
You have to pay like $200 to expedite it.
I got enough time.
Oh yeah.
Did you shower?
You can expedite it. That's right. I forgot.
I'm gonna shower tonight though. It's gonna be great.
What did you do in the gym, Phil?
I did arms today. So when I do arms, I do bis and tris. But I didn't do a full 3 rotations because I got there a little late, so I did 2 rotations.
Okay.
Being fancy with his rotation.
Oh, good. Not
fancy gym terms and everything. I do the same thing I always do. Basically just do cardio and yeah, that's about it. And I don't know. I'm not very regimented. I don't know. I just do the same thing every time.
What cardio do you row?
I go on the step machine and just like go full speed for like an hour. And then I'll lift some weights.
Fucking hour?
Yeah, I'm a crazy person. But it's like I sit on my ass all day, every day. So I'm like, if I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go really hard. That's the way.
You exercise the same way you draw. You just sit there and bash it out for an hour.
Yeah, listen, I'm 0 or 100. Okay, no in between.
How many steps is that? Do you know? Because it usually tells you on the thing.
I don't know, but it tells me. I watch the calories. I don't really watch how many steps.
That's crazy. Because I did, usually when I go to the gym with my girlfriend, we go to a bigger gym than the gym I go to on the regular. And they have a step machine there. So I'll start off, because she'll be on the treadmill, and I'll get the step scene right behind her, so I could look at her.
Awesome.
So, but I'll do like 10 minutes of the step machine, and that's like more than 300 steps or something like that.
It's a lot. I know usually I hit about like 600, 800 calories. I mean, but I'm going so fast that it's probably more than that because it just tells you, it counts by the steps.
Rini, if you build up some more muscle, then you will naturally burn more calories constantly all the time.
Yeah. Well, doing the step machine, doing the step machine should build muscle as well. But yeah, if you have more muscle, you're able to burn more calories.
Just focus on squats, Rini.
I am. And that's what I do with the kettlebells. Listen, I'm going to have the best ass at Tampa. Don't worry. I'm working on it.
Is that what the competition's going to be?
On there.
The best ass at Tampa.
Yes, it's going to be a competition.
It's you versus Shane.
I go hard on ass days. Just letting you know.
Oh.
I didn't work out today, but I had a random sugar crash, so I drank some ketchup, emergency ketchup.
You drank some? That is the most narwhal answer. I didn't go to the gym, but I drank some ketchup.
Yeah, I was feeling really fluttery and weak, and so I was like, I gotta find something sugary, and so the only thing I had was ketchup. But that happened to me in Portland once, and I was on a jog, and I was like gonna faint, but I found shade underneath a pear tree in a neighborhood, and I ate a bunch of pears, so I survived.
It was a pear. A pear under a pear tree.
Yeah.
Picked up the rotting pears from the ground that were full of fucking ass.
This is the most weirdest solution, but I expect no less. I'm wearing my horny horns today. Look.
Your Rinny's
Nice.
horny now.
I knew someone would say that.
Those are
But-
cool.
Thank you. I got
I'll
him
get
to. I don't know what I got him for. Some.
Check out my
awesome-
hat. So since we're talking about culture today, I'm wearing my Bruce Lee shirt, right? And then check this hat out that I found in a Six Flags Great America parking lot on the ground.
It's got an ass on it. Is that an elf ass? A demon ass?
Whoa,
Is
that's
that
like some-
weird.
Reflected on a sword or something?
it looks like Zayd
it-
comic style kind of. It looks like Magic Hop.
It almost looks like a
Yeah.
comet. You just found it on the ground.
It was in a parking lot, and it's like the point of view of a driver in a car looking in his rear view mirror, adjusting it, right?
Mhm.
There's his hand. And then there's a
Man, Noel's eating food he found on the ground. Phil's wearing clothes. What the fuck is going on?
Okay, I don't pick things up off the ground. Apparently, I'm just not interesting enough.
Yeah, I'm an untidy person, but I'm a very germ phobic. I don't want to touch icky shit.
Yeah, I'm tidy and a mild germaphobe. So,
I'm not touching.
hell, this is AIDS cap. AIDS cap. All right. Well, hello, chat. What's up, everybody? Welcome. Welcome.
Oi.
It's a very chaotic opening. Oi, but it's all right. We're here with a super organized going forward show. Not really. Welcome to the Creative Block, where we talk about storytelling and comics and art and all kinds of things to do with those subjects and some writing stuff. And today we're talking about culture. That is like the general subject. And I think we all sort of have our own takes on it. Jake has a whole presentation, of course.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
we can always count on Jake to be over prepared, and I'm so grateful because guess what? I was in work hell this week as I just finished all the inks on Fiendish 2. I'm so happy. Yes, it's such a good feeling. I have
Congratulations.
never been like almost brought to tears by finishing inks on a book. This has been so much. It's not like it's just been so much work. I think.
This calls for a bonk.
No! I don't have bugs. It's my channel. I'm in control.
My fucking sounds are all broken. I restarted my computer and they're all broken. I've got no sounds. No.
You tried to smuggle in some bonks, didn't you?
Yeah, I tried to assemble a new panel of bunks and it all failed. Shit.
You can't bonk at me today. That's
Oh my
right.
God.
Even
I
your
can't
computer
emotionally
was
handle
annoyed.
I can't womp womp trombone. I can't like do all the freaking Looney Tunes sound effects. Shit.
Oh, I want the
Yeah.
other sound effects. You need to restart right now.
I
I'm
don't-
going to regret it.
The way it works is because I restarted my computer, it like has literally wiped them all and I have to reset everything.
Oh my
But
Oh, that sucks.
What are you using voice mod?
no, I'm funnily enough, law point, I'm using the exact same sound desk I think Shane uses. So I can just do stuff like if I put God mode on, like
Do I sound like God right now?
You do. You do
So,
sound like God right
okay,
now.
so I can go
$2.
and then I can just like keep going.
$2.
There you go.
Right, you can record shit. Yeah.
And you
Well,
can
you could record yourself saying bonk.
okay, wait.
Oh my
Wait.
God.
Yes, hold on. Yes, Phil. I gotta clear that one.
No.
Okay, wait a minute.
Bonk!
And then we need like bonk. And then we need boink. And then we need bonk. Right. And then I can go
Bonk!
yeah, bonk.
Damn. That's
There we
like infinite bonks. It's like looking into a mirror.
I'm sorry,
You're looking into two mirrors facing each other of bonks.
Yeah, bonk.
God damn it! Can we start the show? Fuck.
That's like a disease. He caught the bonks.
I got a bad
So
case of the
annoying.
bonk.
So annoying. Okay, all right, you bonked
Right.
it. You celebrated. All right, cool. So, anyways, that's cool.
Woo.
There's my campaign update. Finish 2 is inks complete, and now I'm helping my colorist because I want to get to print by the end of the month, and we had some really bad flatters, so I'm
Ooh.
doing flats. Yeah, my
You're
work's
doing
not.
even more work.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to.
Takes the longest, I think.
It really does, yeah. And we had like some terrible flatters that were slow, and so he's behind on the colors. So I'm like, okay, just give everything to me, and I'm gonna not sleep this weekend and finish all the flats.
You're
So-
pinch hitting for yourself. What is that? It's like the Matrix.
If
I'm
you need a
what?
flatter, I know a flatter that's very fast.
Really? Okay, we'll talk later. That would help. I've got how many? Just about like 10 pages left, but we'll talk later. Okay. Anyways, so that's cool. Let me catch some super chats. Fusebox for 10. Thank you very much. Hey, Rini, I was wondering if I could come on your roundtable to present Outlaw Knights issue 2. Space pirates, guns, sexy people, crazy imperialism versus freedom. Check it out on the starter of Kicks. Sure, of course. I will. Miss, hold on. Let me write that down right now so I don't forget. I have a little note list here.
Wait, $10. We need like 10. Yeah, bonk! Bonk, 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 bonk.
Bonk!
That's good.
Okay. All right. That's nice. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Fusebox. We'll talk. And Fusebox for another 10. Thank you. Hail to the panel. I beseech thee. Outlaw Knights issue 2 has been creeping slowly on the Kickstarter. If any of you would like a humble writer on your channels, I would be most grateful. Fantastic. Anybody wants to reach out to Fusebox, that would be perfect. Thank you very much. Michael Rushman with 4.99. Thank you. Rini, you finished the inks, but I'm sure there's a couple of trees you missed. Nope, I'm good. I'm done. I know what it's. I mean, I've been a crazy perfectionist through this book. Like, it looks, if I dare say so myself, I think.
Yeah, can we gush about it? Can we gush about it or not? Should we save our gushing? Because
you can't. Okay, so I've shown everybody the PDF, and you can't spoil anything, but you can certainly tell how you what you think. Okay.
There's a panel where this guy cuts some hay, and it's awesome.
There actually is a panel like that.
It looks fucking amazing.
I really did it. I enjoyed that panel because it was a shirtless guy, and that made me.
It's a good panel. Not the same reason I liked it. Man.
Are you not going to do a whole chapter where Casimir isn't allowed to wear a shirt for some reason?
I might.
It's burned off.
Keep putting new shirts on, and they keep like exploding off him.
You know, there's a reason that the demons have acid and burn everything they touch.
Clothing. Oh my god!
And I wasn't really planning. I was like, I thought of that, and I was like, I think that's a little too self-indulgent, but it might happen. Why not? But yeah.
And now the tentacles make sense, and him being able to exist within the mouth tentacles of demons without like dying. Oh my god!
I mean,
shirtless man in the tentacled mouth of a demon.
Yes.
The book.
This is totally not a self-indulgent book at all. But yeah, we're I'm very proud of this work. And I'm looking forward to you guys seeing it. So thank you. Michael Rushman for another. Oh, that was I already got that one. Thank you. Download Solo for 10. Thank you. Never heard from you and was distraught, so I took your advice that I in no way misconstrued about making myself a priority to you and just sent money. What you did?
Oh God! What?
Oh no! Hope it's enough to at least get you started. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Yeah, there's that. I need to finish these flats this weekend, and then I have to color the trading cards, and then I have to finish. The letters are done, but I need to edit the dialogue, and I did the letters, but I didn't put the tails in. So I'm gonna spend a few hours putting in the tails, and I'm counting my work by like hours now. It's like I have 5 hours to do this, and then I have to do the sound effects. So that's all of next week, and I also still have Cecil's cover to do because I've been putting my inks first, but he needs a cover. I'm very sorry, but I will get to your cover as well as soon as we're done with all this.
Maybe this will help. Yeah, bonk.
I don't think.
It's weird hearing bonk and not seeing your mouth open. I'm like, damn, that's creepy.
I know.
So
I was really
my mouth.
confused.
Whenever I do it, should I go, yeah, bonk?
Whoa, that's weird too. That was like Uncanny Valley style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like AI generated bonk.
Yeah.
AI bonks.
Need to put like a voice filter. Bonk, 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 bonk.
Don't tempt me.
Jake's gonna clip that and use it on next one.
Oh my god, that's great. Yes.
Oh shit.
It's just
Annoying
the
myself
by
with my
our
own
own-
voice.
Oh.
J-Bomba fan, CG Meat Machine for 2. Why don't I have a wrench? I'm a CG icon. Oh shit. You're right. Why don't you have a wrench? I'm sorry.
I never heard of them.
Right. that is inconscionable. I will
J-Bomba's an expert at Brazilian booty or something, maybe.
really.
I heard.
All right, you are now wrenched, J-Bomba fan. Thank you very much. All right, let's just jump into it, shall we? So, we're talking about culture, and I want to talk about it because I'm really into like world building and building cultures, and I did a lot of that for Fiendish. But we also kind of talked about like Western versus Eastern storytelling, and I guess that ties into how a culture influences stories, right? Because like Eastern culture and their preferences influence their stories, and Western culture, especially like I don't know if we covered this last time, but it's almost like you can tell what's important to a culture through tropes in their stories. Like the American Western is a very American thing, and having traveled and been around the world, America is unique in the sense of it places a lot of in the overall culture, places a lot of importance on independence and striking out on your own, and stories that challenge the government, or stories that are against the government, or kind of just are in a lawless like frontiers land. That's very American, and I think that shows through in a lot of American media. But in the East, it's almost different, especially like if you read a lot of manga, you'll tell it's kind of the opposite. It's the society comes first, and you trust the rules, and you want to fit in a sense, more or less, kind of like a generalization. But that's sort of what I want to start us out on.
One popular thing that seems to be coming up in manga a lot lately. You know what? The two examples are literally Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch, and they're by the same person, so maybe it's not coming up that often. But it's like having a whole overbearing like societal system, and then you have like this one person who's kind of like underneath it all and trying to still be an individual whilst having to be forced to fit in. Like Denji being indebted to the whole like like demon hunting. I don't know what that organization's called, but then also like all of the people from Fire Punch, like if you have a special power, like if you have electric power, then now you're in prison forever just creating electricity for society. Like you don't have a life now. If you can make fire, then like okay, you're off to the furnaces.
Yeah, we just got a raid. We got 224 people in the chat.
Awesome!
Bogan.
Hello, hi, Bogan Raid people. Welcome. We're talking about culture and storytelling. So hit the like, and thank you for joining us. It's going to be a good show. Yeah, I have noticed that. I guess it is like two examples. I was trying to think of, are there any other stories like that in manga? I'm sure there are, but that makes a lot of sense as well. Because both Fire, especially, I don't know about Fire Punch. I guess Fire Punch is almost like it's just anti-authoritarian in a way, because it's the apocalypse and people are forced into this caste system because of their superpowers, and it's the system is presented to people as, well, this is what we have to do to survive in this apocalyptic landscape. But definitely in Chainsaw Man, it's like the main theme of the story. It's how society and debt, and like he inherited his father's debt, so his life is just like complete shit, and he's like contracted his life away to this organization. And I'm not going to spoil it, but really when you get to the end, it's super clear like who the villain is and what the actual like the social commentary is actually really strong. I thought that was really well done, and it's more or less against the control of the system, right? It's really hard to explain this without spoiling it, but that's what Chainsaw Man is commenting on. And I can see that theme applying to any culture, but probably more so in Japan, where we all know that work culture, basically your entire life is very much almost regimented. It's like when you go to school, you're expected to like be a student 100%, and you're expected to perform. And when you go to when you graduate and you work, your life is the company, your life is your work, and you're expected to just like not even have much of a family like that. There's very little work-life balance, and that kind of society. And also we can talk about like the legal system and like how strict Japanese law and the Japanese punishment system, whatever you call it, criminal punishment is. It's ridiculously strict, and I can see how that's like the strangulation. A lot of people would feel constrained by it, and I don't think a story like Chainsaw Man, even though in America there is still, I think a lot of people, it wouldn't surprise me to have stories about like, well, criticizing like too much like a repressive society or something. It's really not the same in America. So Chainsaw Man is a very Japanese story. Another one I noticed is I think One Punch Man is also really Japanese in the sense of he's this, there you go. One, I don't know if this makes sense, but sort of the way he's like almost bored with life.
Oh, true. Yeah, yeah.
And he's like,
he starts off as like a salary man who doesn't give a shit anymore, and then
yeah,
a giant crab monster's like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you. Do you care about this?" And he's like, "Not really."
yeah, like he's just an average person in Japanese society. He's like, oh, I just don't care, it's whatever. And then he masters like one punch, and then he's still bored with life, and he has no more challenges. So I'm like, oh, that's some kind of social
same creator, Mob Psycho. That is like a character with a lot of societal pressure on them, just like bubbling under the surface, ready to explode, and then eventually explodes.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a line in B Stars. It was just like a screenshot on Twitter, but it was the character saying like, he's like, you shouldn't go to college. College is kind of stupid these days. Just watch YouTube instead. And I was like, oh, I love that. And that's almost like something I would say. But in America, I don't know if I just don't see that, or it would feel weird if I would feel uncomfortable putting a line like that in one of my comics, because I'd feel like it was too on the nose or whatever. But for some reason, reading it, someone else doing it, and it was a Japanese context, it felt really refreshing and cool that they would just say what everyone's thinking kind of stuff.
Can you imagine how less sociable people would be if they literally did that instead of going to like further education? They just sat at home, watched fucking YouTube videos. Everyone turns into a shut-in. I'm gonna educate myself using the internet. Never making any friends.
I think that's
It's
what a lot of
happening.
people already do. Yeah.
Our lives now.
Well, you have to have the I don't know, the gall to transmute that into successful stuff. You know,
Yeah.
you have all the power. You have to do something with it.
It's all about your motivation. Chainsaw Man is a very silly story. His only mission is to touch a booby. That's true. The main character is silly, but I don't think the overall story is silly. The main character is annoying as shit and really immature, though. So that is true.
Well, the thing that I wanted to touch on with culture, just in I guess a broad term, but like the thing that fascinates me is how culture affects storytelling. And I know you guys are probably going to get into how you put culture into different stories and stuff like that, and examples of that. But you brought up, Irene, like the Western, which is purely American, right? We came up with the Western, and at first you have like the Ford Westerns, which were the golden hero, lawman that was rushing out the cowboys and stuff like that. And then the Italians loved that, and because of what was going on in the culture of Italy at the time, of how they were being oppressed over there, they turned it up to have the spaghetti Western being the black-hatted outlaw that wasn't working for the government, that wasn't working for the state, that saw sometimes the state being the bad guys and would take out justice vigilante style. And that's a direct correlation. And that's why they were so popular. And it's why the genre died, is because, within a span of 7 to 10 years, there were 600 Westerns that just came out of Italy, and it super saturated the market with it and then bursted the bubble. So, but that had a direct correlation of what was happening in the Italian culture at the time. And then now you see at any time like Western and outlaw media becomes popular, it seems to correlate with an over oppressing government and people wanting to take the law into their own hands. So that's
I like that.
pretty cool way. Yeah.
How, Phil, do you so like say cultural influence on the storytelling itself, right? Would you notice a difference between an Italian Western and an American Western with like story structure, like dialogue choices? Like what kind of differences have you noticed there then?
Oh, definitely. It's night and day between, you have your classic like John Wayne Western and then your Clint Eastwood Western, like the first, Sergio Leone films, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, stuff like that. It's totally different storytelling techniques. I mean, you get a lot of nuances in that because directors are different, how they like to shoot things, but the tropes are totally different as well. The spaghetti Western hero is more of your anti-hero that walks the line, and it is oftentimes very selfish. You have your John Wayne hero when he was doing those golden age Westerns. This guy's like Superman, right? He's born to just, work for the state. He's a goody two shoes cowboy not cowboy, but Boy Scout type character. And then you have someone in a Sergio Leone film like Harmonica in Once Upon a Time in the West, who is just out for revenge, and they make selfish decisions. So
that reminds me that there's a movie called Midnight Cowboy. That's a famous New York movie. It's like listed as like the quintessential New York 70s movie. And it's a really good movie, but it was made by a European. And I think the fact that he didn't grow up in New York, he just traveled there. All of a sudden he can see it from an outsider's perspective and everything that's iconic about it pops out to him. And so that kind of made it, he went with the iconography of it. And that's kind of what happened with Italian Westerns too, is like they look at it from afar and they just see the things that are popping out. They notice those what things that we take for granted because we're in that culture kind of.
Yeah. So yeah.
I wonder what a British Western would have been like.
What do you guys even have?
Cultures. Maybe the British Western is more like a gangster film.
Maybe.
It's an Australian one, sort of,
It's Quigley Down Under.
Yeah.
Wait, so the Australian Western is like Mad Max or something?
Yeah, kind of.
It's the British outcasts make good movies. British, I don't know if there's like tea. They just make sipping tea.
The outcast prisoners from Britain.
Yeah.
We'll never forget that they're Prison Island.
Put them where they belong.
Damn.
Can I tell you guys my quick story and how it relates to culture maybe? Because something pretty interesting happened to me yesterday. And it was, do you know, like a week ago, I was telling you guys I spotted a raccoon and I wanted to make her my friend. And I was like,
now Noel has rabies.
Yeah, well, and I told you who cares about rabies? That's what I was saying. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, right over at the lot right next to me, there's this old shack. And I know that's where the raccoon lives. And I woke up yesterday morning and they're demolishing the shack. And I was like, oh shit, the mom's going to lose her home. And I went out there later on and like said hi to, was talking to them. And they're like, you want 3 baby raccoons? And I was like, what? They're in that cooler over there. He's like, yeah, I think I squished the mama. The guy's kind of like almost in tears because I found out later this guy like loves animals. So he's like, they'll be the best friends you ever had. I rescued and saved 4 of them last year. They're the best pet I ever had. Well, the deer was the best pet. I've raised possum, parrot. He just lists off. He's just like, so he's a guy who demolishes buildings. He runs a backhoe or whatever. And his job, him and his assistant, they went under the house to scare all the animals out of there first. They couldn't get the raccoon to leave. That's what they were worried about. But they did rescue the pups, the babies. So they pull the babies out. They're 1 week old. Their eyes aren't open. They're just sitting there. And he's
Oh.
and I was like, he's like, and you know, people talk about rabies. Rabies is bullshit. You don't even need to worry about that. And I was like, that's what I was saying.
I don't think it's bullshit, but all right,
Yeah.
if you're willing to take the risk,
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
it's
I
was
not
like-
bullshit.
Famous
He's like-
last words.
Holy
Yeah. He's like, you
Mhm.
can't feed them regular milk though. You got to get cat milk formula at Walmart. And I was like, I'm gonna go get some right now. So I went and got some.
They have
And then he's
cat
like, you got to
milk?
feed them every 3 hours.
He's
for
raising
3
three
months.
raccoon babies.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you like how the
Awesome.
full story. So yeah, and I fed them first, and they were screaming, and they didn't really want the milk. And I was like, "Am I doing it wrong?" He's like, "Is it warm?" He's like, "You got to be patient. And they don't really like it, you know, until they get used to it. They want their mom, but she's gone." And so I fed him once, and then the neighbor saw me, and she's like, "You raccoons can be a nuisance. You have to release them far away once they're raised if you really want to do this." Because she's nice, but she's not that nice, you know what I mean, or whatever. And so then I kind of got like a little bit of cold feet, and I Googled like, what do you even do like if I don't take the raccoons? And there's a rehabilitation center nearby where they're kind of what they do is they'll raise the raccoons if they don't have a mom, but they raise them in a way that they don't get human bound, because that's the only time. Because I was kind of thinking like everyone's racist against raccoons, like they're always around, they've always been here. What does it matter if I have a few of them myself? But it's if they get human bound, then they can be a little bit more of a nuisance. They can fight with cats and they'll get closer to humans. And then maybe
It's like, I know humans. Fuck you, cats. I'm better than you. I know
Yeah.
humans.
That's
Yeah.
weird. Like, would they just not be scared of humans, so they come around encroach on your stuff more and your property?
yeah, the neighbors are whatever. But the guy's like, yeah, but they're the greatest. They're the best friends you'll ever have. They're my favorite. But
Aw.
so the rehab center, they raise them so they don't get human bound, which I think means they kind of raise them in cages. Like it's not even that great. But then they
Aw.
release them and they actually can survive in the wild and kind of do okay. So
Mhm.
I called them and they're like what the guy said too. Him and them are both like, we're not 100% sure the mom's dead. So wait till the morning because at night she might come get them. And so I put him out. She's like, put a hot water bottle in with the babies to keep them warm because they don't regulate their temperature very well and they could die that way. So I'm doing that. And then I go to give it a new water bottle 2 hours later. And I go walking out there and I see the mom book it. And I was like, she's alive. She made it. So
You made it.
yeah. So then I'm kind of watching for a little bit and I got my camera and I did end up taking some footage, but she didn't come that time. So I started working. Then babies are all wrapped up in blankets and I hear the baby screaming and I know what it sounds like because I fed him earlier. So I run out there and there's a baby. One of the babies is missing. Another baby's on the grass next to the cooler and one's in the cooler. And I'm like, what happened to this one? And he's screaming. So I put him back in the cooler and he calms down by the water bottle. And the neighbor cat was going to eat him too. And I scared the cat. I was, get out of here. And so then I'm watching. Yeah. And I'm like, I hope the mama got him and like not the cat or whatever. So I was like investigating that for a little bit. But I think the mom just got the first baby. Then she came back, got the second. And then I got my camera out. She came back and got the third. And she takes them in her hands and her teeth and she waddles like this.
Oh my
Had
God.
2 legs?
Yeah.
You walk? That's
Do you have a
crazy.
picture? Show us. This is like
Hold
this
up.
is the best tangent ever.
Yeah, I'll
People in the
I'll
chat-
pull up the video in a second, but I guess, and that pretty much finishes the story. But there's a ravine really close, so she's living there now, so it's like definitely a happy ending. And then to kind of, I guess, to finish the story is the next morning, I go out. They're working again, so I go out to say hi, and I'm like, guess what? And he's like, what? I'm like, the mama came back. He's like, I didn't kill her, man. You just made my day.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so
That's
sweet that he
amazing.
cared. Oh.
Yeah.
Everybody
So-
in the chat's loving this. Someone said better than a Shane story. So I think
Yeah.
This
Downgo
is an
Solo
awesome
said it.
story.
Downgo
I
Solo
knew
said
as
this
it
is
was
gonna be
happening, I
in-
was like, life is
um,
happening to me right now accidentally, and I'm answering the call. Like I went to Walmart to get
That's amazing. You're the raccoon whisperer, right?
Yeah, Downgo Solo said, is this going to be in Cerberus 3?
yes.
Oh yeah. The raccoons get a bad rap in Cerberus 1. They're just assistants kind of, and so I want to give them a little bit
Redemption
more.
arc for the raccoons.
Yeah.
There you go. Everyone back Cerberus.
Back Cerberus, that's right. Links to our campaigns are in the description, everybody. That was beautiful. I'm glad the babies are okay.
And then,
You know what?
so the culture though is that the guy, that's his job to destroy buildings, and he always checks for animals and he raises them if he finds them. And I was like, that's crazy. I would have never guessed that oh, this has happened before to him. This has happened 20 times. He's rescuing animals and raising them. So it's kind of
And if
That's
that does
awesome.
influence Cerberus in any way, that literally would be like your local culture influencing the storytelling in your own book.
Yeah. I think so. And the culture that people don't like raccoons, like the neighbors didn't like them. And when I Googled it, it is illegal to have a raccoon pet. So you got to keep them secret. And he told me that in the morning. I'm like, I wish you would have told me that the night before, because that's the first thing I told the neighbor, because I wanted to be a good neighbor. I was like, he asked me to raise some raccoons. And she's like, and I'm like, well, I said yes. And she's like, well, that'll be an adventure for you. You have to release them far away because they can be a nuisance as soon as they're better. And I was like, okay.
Oh, you are a good neighbor. That's sweet. That's interesting though, because I mean, I know it's obvious to say that the surrounding cultural influence story, but I think it's so interesting to kind of pinpoint exactly how it does so, because growing up in Taiwan, I know this would probably never happen. And I just remember how terribly dogs are treated in Taiwan.
Especially by you.
Right, it's by me. No, I love animals, but it's gotten a lot better now. But when I was growing up, it's like if there were people who they didn't even have dog shelters. Like people would, most pets, especially in like old Taiwan, like old farm, like agricultural Taiwan, you would keep dogs as guard dogs and cats for pests and not like pets to love. So if you go out to the countryside or just anywhere, even in the city, like the dogs would just be tied up outside of the house and permanently tied up. Like they wouldn't get walked, they wouldn't get loved. This was a tool, and it was horrible. But that was the culture. And sometimes some families, if they didn't want the dog anymore, they just let them go in the mountains. So there were a lot of stray dogs in the mountains and in the outskirts of cities. They're like packs of stray dogs. That's just where I grew up. And like as I was growing up, there started to be people who would feed stray dogs and try to like build shelters for it. And it was this slow cultural change I saw that I think was really influenced by like Western culture, where you see people, treat like, and people care about their animals. And this was a good cultural influence thing. It improved. Yeah. And so now,
hearts, okay.
Well, yeah, it's like a very American or Western thing where you keep your pets to be loved and taken care of. So that has slowly changed, but I think that something like what Narwhal was saying would be really rare in Taiwan. Probably like more so nowadays, but it would definitely not happen when I was growing up.
Are there any like Taiwanese stories that follow the adventures of like the dog gangs of Taiwan, the stray dog hordes and their adventures?
No, but
because you have some
ideas.
you kind of have stories like that in America. Like I'm sure there's a few like animated films that follow like all the adventures of the animals in the city. Like you could totally have like the canine gangs of Taiwan.
Yeah, that's awesome. Maybe I'll do a story like that, and I'll be the first. It'll just be a story about a gang of dogs being treated like shit by everybody.
Rini, can you throw up my screen real fast?
Yeah.
Have you got the video of the?
I'll show you guys the footage I took.
Whoa!
So she doesn't go for the babies right away because she's like real careful. And I put a little banana there too. And I was like, the banana will let her know it's safe. And she's like, no, the banana means it might be a trap.
Our raccoons are pretty smart, right?
Yeah. And then now she's going for the baby. And then she decides when she goes, she really goes.
Hand.
She grabs it, rips it up. It's like,
jeez.
She gets it with its hand and her teeth, and she kind of waddles off. You'll see better when it gets on the other side.
Go.
And then the freaking back focus on one of my lenses is a little off, so it's a little out of focus. But
it's so awkward. She's like
3 legs. She's like,
she's like kind of like holding it with one hand as well.
I hope she's happy she found her babies. I hope she's massively relieved.
Well, I hope. Wait, what if that was a different raccoon and she's gonna eat the babies?
No way. No
Then
way.
she would have just
Don't
eaten
ruin
them
my-
there.
Wait, that was like a Capulet, like it's a different family. you
Oh my
know?
gosh,
Yeah.
no.
Oh,
Don't
one more
ruin it.
thing about the story. I forgot. And the next morning when I talked to him, they said, yeah, when we went under there, that was the raccoon den, you know? And he's like, yeah, there were 5 mummified raccoons down there too. I was like, oh, so they just live amongst their dead? And they're like, yeah, I mean, it's a good home, so they can't really leave. So,
Gosh.
and it's hard to find a better home than that for what it was. So they were just living there for like 20 years, and all these generations of raccoons had died, and they were living amongst the like ashes of their ancestors.
That's
They did it.
Duh.
Organs and jaws and everything, like wrapped in bandages.
That's
Yeah,
what
they-
humans used to, or a lot of cultures, not all
Yeah, like
humans. but
Egyptian style mummified raccoons down there. Like they have a whole ceremony.
That's
a
amazing.
lot of cultures did that. I forgot what's in the Middle East or somewhere in South America, but they had a specific one culture that was called like a cultural trend, kind of like a religious practice in the culture. It was called the cult of the skull or something. I think it was in somewhere in the Middle East. But they would they would bury their dead under the family home, first of all, but also it was a common practice to take the head of your deceased relative, boil it, cover the skull in clay, and paint it, and keep it in the house. Like,
Hell
my
yeah.
dead uncle is
Oh.
still here with me. Ancient people, everybody.
Wait, yours is?
That'd be cool, except to actually do it. Like once it's done, I'd be like, nice. But doing it, I'd be like, sorry.
I've thought about telling my family to keep my skull around for fun when I'm dead. Because it's like a thing. People when you didn't have photos, didn't they keep the skulls of their dead relatives? They didn't do the whole clay thing, but like is
That's
that not a
British
thing?
culture for you. You want to be like held
That's
by
a British-
family.
We keep the skulls of our dead relatives. We do. We just not have the picture frames anymore. We need to keep those skulls on the mantelpiece.
Fucked up
That's
culture.
what British people
That's
do.
Uncle Terry, that is, and that's Aunt June. Oh, they look good together. We lost Terry's jawbone a few years ago, but you know the top bit's still there.
Like the more British accent that you did, even though you're already British.
Yeah.
There's so
Nice.
many. Everyone was trying to suss out my accent on Post Kang's chokeout. Was like, he's not a real Brit. I don't believe it. He was
Can't
sitting
even
back.
he isn't convinced.
He was sitting back like this, being like, I don't know. I doesn't pass the
Sizing you
sniff
up.
test.
You did have like a weird fucking accent. You want to be a
Is-
shrunken head?
Do you know that thing you mentioned about like the fucking skulls and shit, and then like going back to mummified stuff? Misinterpretation of someone else's culture influencing storytelling. Like that's the whole reason we have like mummies as monsters and stuff. Like, or even zombies. How you would have like people you wouldn't really know when someone's dead. So like you would bury people and then they would like burst out of the grave because they'd still be alive. Like that's not a cultural thing, but like previous cultures kind of like death ceremonies ending up becoming like movie monsters later on.
Right. Well, like the zombie could be a good example too, because the zombie is it's like a Caribbean myth thing that is very different, and the evolution of what it is now is totally different than what it was before. Like if you look at the movie Omega Man with Charlton Heston, those resemble more of what old school zombies were, and they were intelligent. They just had white skin. They were the undead, and they were just functioning like intelligent people, but they wanted to eat, humans.
So like instead, it's like vampires, but instead of blood, it's brains.
Yeah. So they're trying to eat people, and they're all like super white.
Is
They get
that
white hair too.
Goddamn white people.
Yeah. That would be another thing.
is that culture though? And someone asks, is there a creative topic? Yeah, we're talking about culture. I think well, this is a way that I can direct the conversation. And Jake, you mentioned this in the back rooms as well. I think you can use culture to create conflict in storytelling, and that's a very useful tool. And I think I have kind of inadvertently done so in Fiendish, definitely. And I would love to hear examples that you guys can think of that, or if you guys have done so in your stories.
It's so common in fantasy because you pretty much take all things from our own cultures and then just like abstract it, amplify certain parts of it. Do you know what I mean? And like different races. Like it's not just people of different colors. It's like you have the elves and the goblins and the midgets who live in the caves and dig out all the gold. Like you can get some pretty crazy shit in fantasy and just have fun with it. But like I have done a whole document like that. What is a story without characters? Story is just characters, right? So like, and like, what is the spice of actual stories? It's like the tension that you have. And how do you create tension? Have two opposing ideas, whatever they are, two opposing concepts that have to exist together. So that's like, you can have two different cultural identities, not in the modern sense, in like the classical sense, that like have to coexist. Like if you have two characters from different cultures, they can have culture shock.
It's literally Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Would you say that's different cultures? I guess in a sense, because you could zoom way in to like the family.
They have two different like families, and they have culture within their family. Like you'll have family traditions, that's your family culture. So if you do have two tribes, essentially, like they'll have their own tribal cultures, and if the conflict can be generated by them, those two opposing cultures, kind of like the friction between them.
This you can definitely see this in sort of the classic fantasy idea of like, well, dwarves and elves hate each other, which is it's taken from Tolkien. You can play off of that, see that in Tolkien's work and all the things that are inspired by him. But actually, I guess this counts as culture, but it's also different species, but it is different cultures. The example I can think of is actually Ender's Game, where the whole thing is caused by a cultural and biological misunderstanding, and that is why they're at war. And they didn't have to be. Spoilers for Ender's Game, but if you haven't read it, what are you doing? It's a classic. Yeah, spoilers for Ender's Game. So the entire the conflict in Ender's Game is like, okay, humanity is at war with these aliens, and these aliens are these like bug-like creatures, and they're like very formidable and everything. So the Ender is this little genius kid who is recruited to help humanity fight. That like is trained to be basically a space general along with a bunch of other kids, and for various reasons they have to use children. So he succeeds almost without inadvertently because they kind of tricked him into it. So anyways, he basically causes a genocide. He like blows up their planet and genocides this alien race. And then after this happens, he discovers that there's like the aliens function kind of like bugs. So they have this queen, and he finds like a message from a queen. I'm a little blurry on the details. Correct me if I'm wrong. I read it a long time ago. But what the queen's message reveals was she basically is saying, "We're so sorry for starting the war and attacking you, because we have their species, because they function like bugs. They have like this collective consciousness." And the only like source of consciousness are the queens. All the other kind of minions that are out there fighting, they're almost seen as disposable. They're not like fully conscious. So if you kill the minions, that's nothing, because that's not a real person to them. They function like as a whole, and they're telepathic as well. So because that's just how they function. It's almost like we speak verbally, but some aliens might not. Like there's been like scientific theory about what might aliens actually be like. They might not speak verbally. They might communicate with hormones or with like colors or something, and we would have no way of even understanding them. It's the same issue there. These aliens that had telepathy, they encountered human civilization, and they thought humans weren't fully conscious. They're like, these aren't actual individuals because we can't sense telepathy. So you guys aren't like your lives aren't worth anything. So they attacked and tried to take our resources, and then later realized that every human is a conscious being, and they misunderstood it. But then they're already at war. So that's the basis of the story, and that the entire thing was stemmed from a cultural misunderstanding.
Mhm.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I have no extrapolated thoughts from that. I was just listening to it and like,
It's a really good story.
What
great story. I should have.
I'm just gonna say it. That queen was a bitch.
Mhm.
Well,
You
I
know-
mean, I was trying to. You're talking
Jump
about like
into
a.
conclusions.
If you're talking about like a hive mind entity, like you could take everything that we can think of in our imaginations is an abstraction, an exaggeration of stuff we experience in real life. So like if you're exploring, there are so many different entities and races or whatever, usually explored in sci-fi more often, where you have like a collective consciousness, and you can think of like it's an amplification, exaggeration of just like, oh fuck, I forgot the word. The group society. What is it? When
What?
collectivism.
Mind.
Collectivism. Okay.
I had it at the beginning of that paragraph, then I went on my halfway through my rant. I forgot what I was saying.
Damn dirty commies. That's what you were thinking.
Yeah,
Damn
man.
commies,
Yeah,
that's
fucking
right.
commie alien bugs. They're all
Yeah,
dead now.
that's kind of that political ideology sort of wants us to function like the bugs, though, isn't it? It's like you're a collective, but we're not.
Right, the
Humans
hive
don't function
mind.
that way. Yeah, we can't. We're too individualistic. It's unfortunately we're just not that organized. You need to let us be free.
Yeah, like to be honest, if you were to look at current culture, right, with all the friction going on, it is basically you could make a story out of this. You could abstract what's going on from culture right now and turn it into like a sci-fi story, because it's like certain people are trying to impose a very top-down organizational fucking plan on the world, right? And like it's probably going to become a bigger and bigger deal over like the next 5-10 years. They're going to just push harder. They want you in your fucking box. They want you in your party eating the boogs. But the thing is, that's incompatible with the human spirit. Like if we are like, if you could be materialist and pretty much boil it down to algorithmic code, like the code of a human being has too much individualistic spirit for that to even be possible. Like if people want to imagine futures like that in sci-fi, like if they try and impose that in real life, it's just not going to fucking work. Like
Well,
the going to blow up.
That's where I'm sure that's where all the greatest sci-fi stories, and especially like cyberpunk stories, have all come from these oppressive ideas that were in the culture that a human mind just extrapolated and embellished to be like, what would be even more worse than this down the line. And then that's where you get a Neuromancer and all the Gibson cyberpunk stuff novels was from that, just coming from stuff that's just classic science fiction stuff that that now is seeming like reality.
Right. You got me thinking of like Demolition Man is weirdly prophetic, and it's interesting to see how that played out. And this was like, it seemed like a silly movie at the time, but I think nobody thought things would really get that bad. But we're approaching this point of insanity where I think whoever created it like understood, I don't know the author, I'm sorry, understood that this is a danger in our society.
Right. You look at V for Vendetta, even stuff like Judge Dredd, which is a hugely influenced by culture and censorship, and it's just taken, fascism turned up to 12 in an American futuristic state. And that's really interesting too, because I was actually watching a documentary on 2000 AD and Dredd, and how Dredd is not a hero character, right? He's this really cool badass character, but he's a fascist, right? He's he's a hand of the law that is incredibly oppressive to this almost outlaw type of world, where everything's over censored and you can't do anything. You have to have, I mean, they don't have to have it, but the society's gotten to the point where you have these oppressive lawmen on the streets.
Yeah, like Splatbag says
Sure.
Judge Dredd might be the British Western. Like, I haven't read much Judge Dredd, so I'd like literally have to say these things and see if Phil can back them up. But like, you know, British culture, if you're gonna think of how that influences stuff, people are they still have a very class-based vibe over here. Do you know what I mean? Like there is there one of the most popular genres of fucking media on British TV is the procedural crime drama, where it's like the police know everything and they're gonna figure it out. Do you know what I mean? Like it's there is so much like almost reverence of the authority in British media. And then if you were to compare, say, Judge Dredd to something like RoboCop, which is American, that is literally the system tries to control this guy even by fucking rebuilding him, but even in that situation, his individuality still fucking breaks through. And
Yes!
Right.
America!
Well, that's interesting too, because you could view RoboCop as like a cyberpunk genre film, just in storytelling and themes, right? You have this corporation that takes this cop and turns him into a weapon, and then his individuality breaks through, like you said, and topples the organization. Then you have like Judge Dredd, where that still has those moments, right, where there's corruption within the judge system that Dredd does have to overcome, but by his rules, the laws in that world are just so over the top that it's almost, and I think like Wagner explains this too in his writing, it is very much a parody and embellishment of what could be and how ridiculous things are and are going to be in the future.
You know what, John's saying I'm a fake Brit. Guess what, John? Just wait till you see my fucking presentation. You'll see how knowledgeable I am on British culture.
Oh yeah. You want to launch into that? You had this pulled up
If
the
you
whole
want,
time.
you go for it. Yeah.
Let's go for it. We did a very good segue right into this, so I'd love to hear about British culture.
The funny thing is, John kind of isn't wrong. Like, when I was younger, I did absorb more American stuff and didn't really absorb my own culture's media. So, like, I just watch Futurama all the time and Simpsons instead of reading like Judge Dredd and like the Beano. But yeah, I've got a pretty good handle on British culture. It's a very high tea culture, aka we drank a lot of tea. So we time, right? That's a British thing,
How
right?
did you guys get tea? Wasn't that like during the Empire? You guys were like, ooh,
stole it from other countries.
Yeah, good job.
Tea is just no. Tea grows naturally. I think it's like all the tea fields are in Scotland or something, and that's where we got all from. Totally not from like India or anything. That's just forget about all that.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, and there's an evolution of tea is like the high tea locations. Like these are all the locations that you would drink tea. If you were British, you can't just drink it at home. So if you want tea, you can drink tea in phone boxes, sometimes churches. The Mini Cooper is a very popular tea drinking location in the UK, as long as you can keep your mug steady. Pubs and British people famously like line up in queues. We're very used to that. It's very common to be drinking cups of tea whilst queuing up, whether it's like at the bank for some theme park rides, maybe for a driver's license. But
this is pure bullshit. I can't.
No, it's completely real.
No, this is bullshit. You guys just drink tea walking on the road. You guys take a break. Like, it's tea time now.
You can't just drink tea at home. You have to walk around and look.
It's
what the fuck
time it is.
Yeah,
people all make fun of British culture now.
We go to. Is this not what British culture is about? Am I getting it wrong?
No.
You are Doctor Who. Right. Doctor Who has that stupid telephone booth.
And he's drinking tea in like almost every shot of Doctor Who, right?
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know.
But yeah, so obviously I'm very educated about British culture, and I've managed to break down British media into kind of like the 3 realms of British storytelling.
Okay.
Much like the very on point 5 voices of writing. I think these So yeah, all British culture is pretty much grouped into the shouty, shooty Londoners, aka gangster-style films. You got Layer Cake, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and Football Factory. Then you have Kings and Swords and all that shit. Lord of the Rings, famously British. The Holy Grail was a very serious documentary about British history, as is the Disney movie The Sword in the Stone.
Great film.
And then the third category, Hugh Grant is going to fuck you.
What?
If it doesn't fall into the first two, a British piece of media is going to be a romantic comedy about Hugh Grant eventually having sex with
He'll
you.
fuck you in Lord of the Rings too if you let him. You gotta watch it.
He'll fuck you in anything. If they're gonna put Hugh Grant in the other two genres, wait a minute. Does the Hugh Grant will fuck you genre subsume all other genres if you put him in?
Yeah, he's in a shouty shooty Londoner one. I forget what it's called though, but I don't think he fucks anyone in that one, so I don't know.
I
It's a
like
weird
these
gray area.
categories.
What's
This
that
is
one where the
great.
poor girl is trying to marry the rich guy, and then it's like in Victorian times or some shit, and they go to a dance. All the women love this one.
Yeah. Pride and
Apparently
Prejudice.
not.
That Pride and Prejudice.
Oh right, yeah.
That's a
Is
good
he in
one.
that?
It
Is
is
he in
good.
that movie, Hugh Grant?
Pride and
No.
racism.
I haven't seen
don't
the
know.
movie.
I
I've
don't
read
know
the
if
fucking
you
book. You guys read books? Jesus.
No, you should watch Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I heard that one.
Oh,
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Oh, we got some Aussies in chat.
Oi,
Oi.
ex-Brit.
Look, you're watching
Expert.
like a very, we got to talk about culture. So I'm from rural UK for sure. So I thought I would talk about British culture because I'm very informed about. But no, obviously that's all bullshit.
The categories that wasn't so bullshit. I was like, oh yeah, these are very. I don't know about like romantic comedies, but the Kings and Swords and the shouty Londoners, yeah, that's very much.
Well,
UK thing.
I mean, yeah. When you're talking about the police and outlaws, pretty much gangster films in the UK are our version of like cops and robbers. Pretend, you know what I mean? Like mobster movies, I guess, can be an evolution of that. But then it did make me think. Because you're talking about fantasy earlier, is general classic fantasy like an English thing, or did it come from anywhere else?
I think so.
I think because having not really known, we have a limited cultural scope, I think, because we're all from the Anglosphere, and even though I live in Asia, I think fantasy in Asia is also like very overwhelmed by Japanese stuff, sort of manga and anime and Japanese fantasy. They're really big on preserving their culture. They export a lot of that, and they kind of define how to do it, and other cultures have been copying them. But in the West, as far as I know, because remember when Tolkien came out with Lord of the Rings, fantasy wasn't taken seriously, and he kind of built such a huge world around it, and he went so hard on it. He was such a big nerd about it, built languages and shit and actually wrote an amazing story. It legitimized the whole genre, which is he's sort of the father of fantasy. Not that there wasn't fantasy before him, of course. So you have like the King Arthur tales, but I think Tolkien was drawing from, like, he drew from the Poetic Eddas, and also I think the Arthurian tales. All of these kind of Northern European mythologies influence his work, and he legitimized the genre in modern times. So as far as I can tell, I really think, obviously in the Anglosphere, fantasy is almost entirely, so many people copy him, and even in the rest of Europe, stuff like The Witcher, they use elves and dwarves in the Tolkien-esque sense, right? And other European fantasy almost draws from him as well, unless you guys think of other examples.
I'll give it to the Brits.
It's not
Yeah, you guys can have that one.
It's making me think how this stuff is formed, because if you were to categorize all that, it's like just all folklore from the past that someone would do a lot of research on, and then like kind of like crystallize their own genre from.
They always have British accents.
Yeah, except in the fucking Witcher. Oh wait, is Henry Cavill? Does he sound British in the Witcher? In the games, you just have all these British people going, "Hello, governor," and then you have this fucking The witches are always American, like, hey, how's it going? I need my sword.
I like
sharpened."
that. I like that though. I want to break away from. I know it's like weirds people out, but like for example, in Fiendish, I don't do the whole fancy fantasy speak thing, and some people were like, "This is weird." And I was like, I don't want to do the same thing that everybody else does. Everybody has a British accent. Everybody speaks in old timey ways. Like I'm creating a parallel universe, not just like this was the 1400s. So,
but you literally have a Scottish accent as like one of your main accents. So don't say you're not using British accents in a fantasy setting.
No, as in the way they speak is kind of modern, except they won't use things like, well, I searched on this webpage, those terms.
Oh, okay.
As we will call people dumbass, and you're not gonna see that in like
there's no like, on the morrow we shall storm Folklore perch and we shall brandish their skulls with our swordsmith, whatever fucking blah blah blah.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Not also I suck at writing like that, so I know my limits.
Well, you didn't understand the concept of ornate writing, so I don't know how you would ever expect to write something like that.
Hey, quiet.
Anyway, but yeah, like, so the conversation so far has totally been about like how your culture can influence stuff, and I kind of took it as the topic as more of how you could represent culture in the media that you make, and how it can be good, how it can be useful for really easy conflicts, like whatever. And so my first like reaction to like Rini wanting to say culture was like, okay, what is culture? What the fuck even is it? So then I went through the typical Marvel and DC how to represent cultures list, basically just through clothing, architecture, accents, food. That's a popular one, right? Like you represent your culture through food.
Oh yeah, that's all Marvel does nowadays.
Yeah. Shawarma.
Oh my god, isn't it like Asian American Pacific Islander month right now or something? Because I totally have something in common with a Samoan. And how much do you bet they're gonna slap ramen and bubble tea on all their posts? That's what they always do.
Again, I'm all about the pokey now.
Hell yeah. I have converted Phil to the pokey.
Whenever you say pokey, I just think of those sticks with chocolate dipped on them. That's such the most bullshit candy.
That's Pocky.
Yeah, that's Pocky. Pokey is different.
It's just the same word.
Pokey is what whores in the Old West called sex back in the day.
I knew somebody was going to make a sexual joke. No, pokey is a Hawaiian bastardization of sashimi, basically. Yeah.
Hey, and in Britain, that's what we call prisons. You're in the poke. You're in the pokey.
Oh yeah, that's
really.
Oh, yeah, and I don't know if it is a reference to getting fucked in the ass, but I've
heard that over here too. I've heard that.
Oh, really?
Here. Like it's an old timey thing, I think, for us.
Xeno the Stoic, real quick. Aren't elves and dwarves Scandinavian? Yeah, but so if you read Scandinavian mythology, the way elves and dwarves are portrayed is not the way Tolkien. Like Tolkien kind of solidified what elves and dwarves are because in mythology it's like dwarves and elves and gnomes and all these creatures are kind of ambiguous and interchangeable sometimes. Like Svartalfheim is sometimes elves, sometimes dwarves. It's and Niflheim. All these places are like it varies from Edda to Edda as well sometimes. So it's not as solidly defined. Like there wasn't like elves are all these tall people who are naturey and dwarves are these short, robust underground dwellers. That was invented by Tolkien. So that's what I mean by other fantasies draw from that.
Who's the one that made elves gay?
I don't know.
America.
America? Okay.
Probably yes.
Faust 766 says porn was illegal in the 70s, so the UK made lots of classic saucy sex comedies. Yeah, that is in the puritanical age that we are in. That's also my reaction to what I'm going to make as a comic.
Yes, you should bring up that list before.
Wait, really? Halfway through this, I can bring it up.
Yeah, bring it up so people find out.
Oh shit! Hold on.
Interlude.
Fine.
I will read some super chats while you're bringing that up.
Perfect.
Yay!
Let's do that. And here, well.
Yeah, I made that slide so we could bullshit about like how culture is basically ham-fistedly represented and stuff, and not explored more interestingly. Oh, they're a different culture. They're gonna act the fucking same, but they're gonna be wearing different clothes. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, we could go on forever complaining about this. It's
that's
like
what I.
we could just go on for a very basic, complete shit recent media. I mean, we have so many, but look at the people have been complaining about how in the Rings of Power, it's like elves don't seem like elves. They don't have this ethereal spirit to them. They don't act like elves are supposed to act, and that's like a cultural thing. You didn't nail their culture.
Yeah.
And
right.
the worst example I could think of that I actually saw was Witcher Blood Origins, which was so bad. It was such a train wreck. It was just unbelievable. I just can't
You actually
believe that
watched
got
it?
made. I actually watched it because
You poor thing.
I didn't finish it because I couldn't take it after the transformation. I was like, I can't. It's so stupid. It just destroys the lore, and it made no sense. The characters are so shit. The motivations don't make any sense. People do stupid things all the time. I can't. But culture was definitely one of the things that were done horribly, because you're supposed to have these two kingdoms, and they're supposed to have been at war forever, and then I mean everybody's elves at this point in time before the conjunction of the spheres, but you can't really tell any cultural differences. That never comes to the fore. It's just like this kingdom is kind of browner. It has browner people, and this kingdom has like paler people, and that's it. It's so surface level. It's nothing more than that.
They can't represent anyone or anything as actually being different nowadays. It all has to be just one big same homogenous slop. Like, we're all the same, literally. We're literally the same person, copy and pasted, but this one's brown and this one is less brown.
Right. And also, oh, go ahead, Phil.
No, you're good. What were you gonna say?
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I was going to say that I think part of it is also so much modern culture imposes modern Hollywood sensibilities onto fantasy or even historical adaptations, as we're seeing recently.
That is modern culture being imposed on the storytelling. That is literally the thing we complain about how a lot of media is shit now. That is modern culture influencing the fucking storytelling.
It is, because I think it didn't come through as much in Rings of Power, but there was some of it, and like what we colloquially complain about as woke culture, it really is Hollywood modern sensibilities and values being imposed on the fantasy work, and a lot of the times it's pre-existing work or it's something literally historical. For example, like the Vikings show, and of course we've all seen the Cleopatra documentary. Nobody likes that, but it's I watched some of Vikings, and I kind of watched it. I know it's not entirely historical, but I noticed so many things about how they would use the excuse of, well, there weren't that many records during the Viking Age, so we're going to kind of like bullshit things a bit and act like this culture was super progressive. I'm like, they weren't progressive. They were like raping and pillaging everywhere, and it was like pretty terrible. But all right, and I think it's like this. And I watched the Viking show, then I read Vinland Saga, and I'm like, okay, Vinland Saga took the approach of being very accurate to Viking culture. Mostly, there were some things that I was like, okay, this wasn't entirely accurate. Like everything looked right, but it was sort of like, well, the culture, the small things, like the character is 17 years old, and in our culture, a 17-year-old is a kid, but in Viking culture, that would have been a grown man. And things like women, all the women in Vinland Saga are very anti-war. And it's like, okay, Scandinavian women at the time were not anti-war. They were goading their men to go to war, but it's sort of these little leeways, but those are like small in comparison to the absolute bastardization of historical truth and these ancient cultures that you see throughout Western media. And it's just gone to this ridiculous point where it's this weird sense of cultural imperialism, where it's not just American culture being pushed on other cultures, which you see with all these Puritans screaming about too many boobs in anime, but they're pushing it on history as well, on what actually happened, and they want to whitewash it and change it. And that's why entertainment is bad, because it's not allowed to be true and to actually have cultural characteristics.
They're iconoclasts. Would you say Vikings are barbaric?
In a lot of ways they were. In some ways they weren't, and in a lot of ways they were. The truth is, there were a lot of things about their culture that could be seen as progressive in our eyes. for example, women did have a lot more rights. Women could divorce, and like the whole legal system, and it was a lot more democratic than like most other cultures at the time. That was basically a feudal culture that was very much like serfs, and like basically the people were slaves to their lords and kings. But other parts of Viking culture were barbaric as hell, and
Would you
that's just how
say-
most ancient
Wait,
cultures
no, let
were.
me do it, Phil. Let me do it.
What?
Rini, have you ever represented barbarism in any stories that you've written before?
Huh?
Would you
What do
say
you-
that Vikings are carnal?
Are you trying to?
There it is.
Oh, there you go.
He does the segue setup, and then she's just like, "Well, actually."
Okay, you guys know I'm like autistic as shit, so I'm not gonna get that. Also, I didn't read any super chats, but it's fine. Okay,
Yeah,
sign up for Cardinal the Barbarian, everybody.
Pitch
I
it
find-
in 2 seconds.
Go.
It's the fantasy version of those British sex comedies from the 70s.
That's
That's it.
awesome.
Like that person in the chat put it great. Like it is essentially that. It's kind of like a reaction to the Puritan stuff. It's just a crazy sexy comedy thing set in a fantasy world of my own creation, and there isn't elves, there's zelfs, and there definitely isn't blorks. No, there's no orcs, they're called blorks, completely different thing. And there's no succubuses, they're called fuckubuses. So like I've tried to make my whole culture for this world. There might even be its own language called English 2. And
Can
it's
you be a
very
little more creative than that, please?
the whole book is going to be written in my original language called English 2. It's very similar to English 1. You'll hardly be able to tell the difference, but the difference is definitely there. But yeah, go and sign up. You can go to carnalcomic.com, and like as it says here, you can sign up now to get like a free thing. I don't know what it's going to be, but you're not just going to be sent a secret link to get the free thing. You're gonna I'm gonna check the list. I'm gonna do that thing where you check the list against like the backer email, and then whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sign up for
See,
this
it-
right now.
Might be a
Thank you.
pin, might be a sketch in the cover. It might be a training card. I
People are
don't.
dropping the link, which is great. Also, I saw that Irene copy and pasted the description from my stream. So the Rumble link, everybody could go over and sub to my Rumble in the description. So thank you.
I didn't. I copied and pasted it from my stream, so I guess we've all been copying and pasting each other.
You copy and pasted
Well,
for the
it's
last
my
time,
Rumble.
and you recopied your copy.
Yeah, it must have been from 2 weeks
No,
ago.
that was
Sure.
from I copied from you, and then you someone copied from me, and then I copied from myself. So,
you go.
anyways,
Yeah, Maromi
Yeah,
said
so-
English 2 Englisher. Exactly, Maromi. That's what it's gonna
Yes.
I'll be honest. Of all the jokey names you come up with, Fuckubus is like the best name I've ever heard. I love that. Fuckubus is so great.
Fuckubuses, they're not going to show up as much in the first book. It's the second book is going to focus more on them. But yes, fuckubuses they're sent to, they're kind of like assigned to heroes to distract them from their quests.
Oh, cool. Is that the chick at the top of the page?
Yeah, that's Eloine the fuckubus. And like I didn't have any other art to put up. One of the other bits of art that I had was like way too fucking lewd, and I don't think people would want to show it on stream. So this is the artwork I had where I'm like, this won't be too bad.
No, that's really cool. I love the colors on it too. She's right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Love
but
it.
Eloine is a bitch. But yeah,
And
Congrats, bro.
Jake has shown us some roughs.
yeah,
He's been
wait a minute, look.
thumbnailing and penciling it. It's
You haven't
fucking
shown off last
hilarious.
I've been thumbnailing it.
Yeah. You
They've
can show, but
read
don't
it.
spoil it too much. I have read it. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's all right.
Storytelling.
I can't show
It's
that.
pretty funny. I like it.
It's just having fun. For quite a few years, I was like, man, you can't do anything. Everyone's going to be pissed off no matter what you do now. And so I actually worked on that project in secret. It was like, do whatever you want, Jake. Just make a project that's whatever. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this version isn't that version because that one's terrible. But this is like that project adjusted so people would enjoy reading it.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's
like
the
story
best
tropes and
way.
stuff.
Right. That's the best way to create, though, is not giving a shit what anyone else would. I mean, it's not like I don't know. I wouldn't say the best way to create is just create what whatever you like, but it's it's what you want to say, and not giving a shit about what people think.
Yeah. The fuck it energy is good.
Yeah.
It's strong with
Yes.
this.
Yeah. I agree. 16-bit mascots are slobbits or noblins. You have some.
Wait, is you inventing new things? Oh my god, a fucking slobbit! What would a slobbit be? They're all so short that they just give blowjobs or something. Like, what's a noblin? A noblin is like what? They're like mining dildo rocks out of the caves. Like, oh, we're goblins and we mine for. There we go. That's the level of intelligence you'll get from this fucking book.
Every single creature needs to have a sexual twist to it.
The fucking noblins. I'm an hobnoblin. I have a bench one.
Knobgobblers.
Yes, wonderful. See, okay, this is Narwhal's classic interactivity. Merely from a couple of paragraphs, people are managing to start making up their own retarded fantasy races, developing their own cultures. Yeah, slobbit is awesome. I have to use that. I'm totally
The slobbits.
the fucking slobbit.
See, it's already a hit.
The slobbits would all have to be like the masseuses that, like, it's the happy ending style thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll do something with it. I'd have to use slobbits. Very good, amazing. You're congratulations. Hail the chat for real.
Is, a very good chat comes up with good ideas. Chat, you guys are so smart. As I mentioned before, but
literally the name of the show came from the chat.
That's true. That's why we talk about our stories and stuff, so we can farm ideas off of you. I'm just kidding. Interspecies reviewers. Oh dear, I haven't seen that, but I've heard things.
I've heard things about that. I actually seen like the opening, maybe the first episode. Very interesting.
Oh yeah, was it good?
There's no English version of it on Blu-ray. There's a German version, and I don't know German.
Lots of monster sex.
So if you're into that, you should go watch
Interspecies Reviewers.
And if you're not into that but want cutesy animal stories, hey everybody, segue. I don't know if there is. Well, there's no like animal fuckings, but
we literally have made interspecies jokes about this campaign on previous shows, Irene.
Okay, if you want more animal fucking, bag Narwhal Cerberus.
Oh my
god! Get the peanut butter bundle. To get cave slave and Cerberus together. Get the peanut butter bundle.
Yeah, get this.
Yeah, it's kind of part of the plot that Lee will watch the couple bang, and they don't like that, so they kind of kick him out of the room, and that's when they get murdered. That's why he's not there. So he's bummed. If they only would have let me watch him fuck, they would still be alive.
That's horrible. Getting murdered while you're trying to get it on.
Yeah.
The worst
Their
thing.
death is bad. Yeah.
Aww.
I guess it's right after. So.
Look at this cover. This is very popular for obvious reasons.
Hubba hubba.
Yeah. You can bet this is
loyalty after death. And I saw we're past 33K. Thanks everyone. That's sweet.
Yeah. You can also get Cave Slave.
And the last day is Sunday forever. It closes forever. And I'm going to start getting prints ready and fulfillment in June. So it's happening. So the books will be like, you'll have them in no time. So pick it up now when you have the chance. And a quick shout out too, because the compendium won't be available for a while after this. This is the last time that's available. That was my previous campaign. And that's a really good one that is a little bit of a sleeper hit still. So if you haven't backed it, consider getting that one.
Awesome. All right,
you
everybody.
Stream on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm going to stream to close it down, I think.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sweet. And also,
The Lost Pages 3. Yes, we are going strong, guys. We're climbing the rungs to our next stretch goal, which is at $40,000. That'll unlock a Kenneth Rocafort trading card, which is freaking insane. This is over 80 pages just for the main story. It's all about our most popular character, Crimstone. That big purple badass there, Crim, is the imaginary friend of that hot chick in the front there, Jasmine. She gets kidnapped and drugged, and Krim falls back into her head. He has to fight her inner demons to claw his way out and save her and the rest of the city. So check that out. We got catch-up tier on here, which includes the tome, which is 212 pages of the previous stories all in one book for only $20. And then we have our ash cans too. So there's a lot of content on here. So take a look and back it. Really
You
appreciate
get a
that.
bottle of ketchup with that tier.
No, you get a lot, but you don't get a bottle of ketchup. I'm actually, this is the first time I'm announcing this. I'm actually going this weekend to Michigan, Motor City Comic Con, hang out with Simon Bisley's going to be there, and I'm bringing some of those. I made prints of those covers that he did. I'm going to have him sign some of those, so we might be selling those or giving them away on the campaign. Signed prints of his cover. It's going to be freaking sweet.
Awesome.
Nice.
This Bisley cover. That's
Yes.
amazing that you got a Biz cover. That's so cool.
The
And
biz.
that name is covering some extremely predominant nippage.
Yeah.
Nippage.
If you're a fan of El Nipoles, take that. The real cover will have them in full form.
Yeah, maybe at the end of the
Yeah.
stream, I'll go grab those prints. I'll show them off.
Oh yeah.
Do it.
Show us. It's not bare nipples, YouTube. It's just through
Yeah.
clothes, you fucking
She's wearing,
prudes.
she's wearing a shirt.
No, she's wearing a shirt. This art is amazing.
I
Damn good.
can't wait to get more. We just got some more colors in. Ricardo is killing it on this, so trying to make the top quality that we can here. It's gonna be great.
All right, awesome. So, but go back this Lost Pages 3, Crimstone by Zay Comics, and also, if I may,
Do it.
just a second, Phoenix Chapter 2. I might change the title actually. I posted an update, so go check it out, everybody. But I mentioned we hit 170K stretch goal, woo! Which is to up the fan art contest winner money reward, right?
She's
I can't
giving
English
back to
today.
the people.
I
Giving
am.
back.
Yes.
The 2
Well-
or 3 people.
Well, it's actually like 5 because I decided to give 2 runners up an award as well.
Awesome.
Honestly, there were so many. I was going to only have like first place, second place, third place, but there were so many good pieces. I was like, okay, I'll have 2 more runner-ups, and you guys get like $100 as well. And I might print them in a book as well, just because honestly, it was amazing. There were so many good pieces. And if you want to check out more about more of those pieces, you can actually go to the website over here, which I also have pulled up. And in the gallery, I have a fan art gallery. So I put up a lot of, check this out. I put up a lot of, these are all the 3 winning pieces are all up here. I think this is the winning piece. I think this was second place and this was third place. And all of these were also, most of these are also from the competition. And I absolutely love it. There's Orwell's piece.
You picked all of the ones that you really liked, right?
I did. Yeah. These are the ones I personally like. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry if there were,
If
anybody
yours
is
isn't here,
offended.
it means she didn't like it.
Yeah, if yours didn't make it means it fucking sucks.
Sorry, I gotta be honest. I'm not going to shield anybody's feelings, but I do appreciate everybody who participated. And also, the fan art contest wasn't judged by my feelings. I had everybody on the team, which was like 8 people. Some people working on this book. It's crazy at this point.
That second
Vote
one,
on
that
it.
second one's freaking awesome. Well, that's
This one.
The second one didn't even
Right.
make it in time for the deadline. Was that the one you meant?
Not that
What?
one. I meant the
Oh,
one.
this. This
That
is
didn't even make it
by.
into the competition. That was
Yeah.
like after.
This wasn't part of the fan art contest. This is just fan art by Luca Brico or Brico Luca. Look him up
Fucking
on Twitter.
I might steal this. I might steal a fan art section for our site. It's a
Do
great
it.
idea.
Yeah. I mean, I love putting. There's so
Commission
much
that
awesome.
artist.
It's so cool to
Yeah.
get fan art. It's just amazing. I can't believe
Amazing.
there are people who are like spending the time to draw this. So I want to add some more pieces on here as well. I just threw this up really quickly, but go check it out. And all the artists are credited, so go follow them too.
Oh, yeah.
Teflon Run says, "Sorry, Hyper Wizard didn't make the cut." Exactly, Teflon Run.
Damn it.
Oh, is that? I'm sorry. I'll just put it up on there to make you feel
No,
better.
don't.
Yeah.
that was
Exactly.
before anyone knew who you were, Jake. So
Exactly. Yeah, for real.
You were just a nobody,
I'm
literally.
still a nobody.
You're not a nobody, Jake. We know who you are now, and we love you. But yeah, so back to the campaign. That's the 170k stretch goal, and the next stretch goal is at 180k. I'm going to be giving out a second free sticker for everybody if we hit that. But I'm going to be closing the campaign soon. I just look at our schedule. I'm like, I might close it by the end of the month. I thought of keeping it open or keeping just like the book only tier, this perk up or something. But I think I'm gonna just close it down so we can focus on fulfillment and the next campaign, because I do have something lined up for late summer. So I think it's gonna be coming down in like a couple weeks. So if you guys want to back it and you haven't yet, you better now. And we have a limited amount of time to get to the next few stretch goals. So
do you think you'll have the
spread
next
the word.
Do you think they'll have the next campaign up by the time people get these books?
I think so, yeah. Or at least I'll have a sign up, obviously. But we are, so the next campaign, which is here. I'll scroll down so we can look at some boobs while I talk. The next campaign, it's like 2/3 of the way inked. So the artist I hired has been awesome, and the colors are a little behind because my colorist had family stuff, like people were sick and so. But it's we're a little more lax on that because it's not like we're going to print yet. So he has all summer to work on the colors.
It's a Fiendish campaign, though.
Huh?
It's connected to Fiendish?
Yeah. So this is the Fiendish 2.5, which is a side story. It's gonna be like, it's 20. It's like a 25 page smaller book, but it's also honestly it's one of the favorite things I've written. It's a character's backstory, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm gonna run that campaign over summer, kind of between chapter 2 and 3, and to kind of give myself a little buffer with chapter 3. But I think it's also really, I think it would be a nice connector. Once you read it, you'll know what I mean, and I think you guys are gonna love it. So
is it gonna have a subtitle? Is it gonna be like Fiendish side quests or something like that?
No, I'm just calling it 2.5. I have a bunch of 0.5 chapters, so most chapters have a 0.5. So 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, and for various reasons that not. I mean, I can get into it, but I feel like I've already covered it. But yeah, so that's upcoming. And with chapter 2, though, we are in the final crunch. As I mentioned, I have been in work and deadline hell. Here's a non-spoiler screenshot of my working.
Quick screen cap it and then unfocus.
AI unblur it.
You can't AI unblur it. I blurred out everything except for a few pages I already showed. I was like, okay, how can I? No, it's gonna be all janky and shit. But anyways, so here's proof. All the inks are done, and the colors are we're like 45 pages, and I'm helping my colorist do flats because we have some terrible flatters, and he needs some help. So we're hoping to have the print file already by the end of the month, and I'm going to just throw it at the printer and be like, hurry up, come on, give it to me by the end of June. But that's my plan right now. Here are some more colors and interiors, and here's a page I was working on stream that I actually have a video of it. I should have like a drawing video up soon.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I already have it for my channel members. So I've been trying to do time-lapse videos, and I recorded the whole process for this, and it's already available for members. So if you're a channel member, you get cool things like that. But I'll have that up probably in a week or so. I'll make it public. And yeah, here's some more. So check it out. It's a pretty big update. We are inks complete and moving towards just finalizing everything and finishing the colors. And I did mention I might change the title just for various reasons. I might change it to Strangers. So I don't know if that's it's not a big thing, but I also don't want to. I don't know. Will that make anybody mad? I think way too much about these things. I people will be like, "Oh, this isn't what you were selling us." So, but it's the exact same story. I think Strangers fits it much better. So I think I'll be changing. It's just the title. Strangers fits better. And the problem is people thought this was an origin story and a flashback because of the title. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? That's stupid. And it's not an origin story. It's obvious. It's not an origin story. There are flashbacks, but it's not an origin story. So I'm going to change that and make that more clear. But yeah, check it out. Fiend Chapter 2. It's my fantasy mystery story about ancient evils resurfacing, and we're going to be this will be in your hands very soon.
It looks fucking sick. You won't be disappointed in the slightest. It looks absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you. I have shown everyone here a very secret sneak peek.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Who was ready? It's ready to rumble. Oh no, it's Jack Show. Right. No, you guys should all stay here.
Hey,
Mr. Jackson, we have like a whole other PowerPoint to go through.
We do.
Your more boring slides to sit through with exciting text.
It is exciting though. We still have to finish this discussion. But let me do just a couple of quick super chats. Maddock for $1.99. Discuss narwhal mother with cooler or baby raccoons. Oh, like narwhal's raccoon mother.
Me narwhal nursing raccoon babies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would be adorable. Somebody should draw that. Jake, it's on you. 200 Watt Studios for 4 Make Wars. That's right. I don't remember these terms. Ender's Game was fantastic. The Bean books are just as good. I haven't read the Bean books, but I did read Ender's Game like forever ago. So, thank you very much. Jimmy Reyes art for 2. Back Dragon Rage. It's my favorite fantasy comic. I would hope it is. And it is also very awesome. It's by Jimmy Reyes. So everybody go check out Dragon Rage and Back It. Yeah, back it.
Jimmy.
All right.
That was a lot of super chats.
Bang, 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 bang.
I had like a moment of confusion because I was like, Jake's not moving his mouth. Okay, all right, back to the PowerPoint. Let's continue talking about culture.
Totally. For 2 seconds, Woodchippy in the chat says Jizzards are a mage class. Getting off the white. Absolutely excellent. The chat's amazing. Yes.
This is what happens when you have the hive mind come together.
You're a gizzard, Harry.
You're a Jizzard, Harry. You're going to Jizzard school. I don't want to.
I want to be a muggle.
Yeah. They would be called like fuckles or something.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, yeah. So away from that really exciting demonstration of culture in a fantasy book, we can go back to bitching about like how culture's boringly represented, or I could go on to like that last one that I was like, wait a minute, social expectations. There's like a whole thing you can go off on. I could do several slides on that one bullshit fucking bullet point.
Let's see the next slide.
Oh, I forgot what it is. Okay, so I just wrote some social expectations that, you know, if you're in a story, could create some conflicts, like how to behave in public. One example I thought in my head is like in some country it's bad to put your feet on a table or something. So you could have some great tension. You can have some great tension where like a character comes in and puts their feet on the table who's like visiting, and then the other person is like, what the fuck have you got your feet on the table for?
Yeah.
How about this? The social expectations and culture conflict. Have you seen the film Beverly Hills Ninja?
No, tell us.
You've seen it, Narwhal?
Yeah.
So it's a comedy film starring Chris Farley as a ninja. He was born, and this ninja, I don't know, camp in Japan found him floating down a river or whatever, and they raised him, but he grew up to be fat Chris Farley. And so he has to journey to Beverly Hills, to America for the first time, but his culture is the Japanese ninja. So anytime he enters a building, he takes his shoes off and leaves them at the front door. Like he goes into the hotel, and every time he comes back, they're gone because like the cleaning person threw them away. They like picked up the shoes and threw them away. So it's just like a fish out of water culture shock kind of thing, and that created funny conflicts in the film.
Yeah, like I didn't bring up any examples because it was just hard to rack my brain to. Okay, it's because I struggled to find clips. I was gonna make a super cut of Futurama clips, but like Futurama is a classic example of like
Yeah.
Fish out of water guy comes from the past and he's in the future, but it's like it's not just the culture of the future which is all fucked up. Like you have all of the alien cultures. Like since thinking about this, I've been thinking like sci-fi can almost be fantasy plus, like the way you can make fantasy races in sci-fi, like having robots as a whole other fantasy race. Do you know what I mean? I suppose they could be golems in fantasy, but
definitely. Yeah,
Remember
Jimmy
the
Ray-
joke in the Futurama pilot where he wants to make a phone call, so he goes to a phone booth, but it's actually a suicide booth.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
would you like slow and painful or quick and painless? He's like, yeah, I'd like to make a collect call to. You have selected slow and painful.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, that is full culture shock there, and also Jimmy Race was saying social etiquettes. So, is what you were referring to here with, what is the correct way to behave in certain situations.
Yeah, like so someone could be trying to be as polite as possible, but like the things they're doing are just inherently rude in the culture they're in and like constantly messing up. But it's just so many stories can come from it because it's character interactions. You could have everyone ragging on the guy, but then you can have one person who's like, he's not just from around here, and they can become friends because of that. And then you could do another story later where like they both go back to the first guy's culture and there's more conflicts there. Like I just think it's a great way to add instant tension. And in fantasy you can make up like pretty much any rule if you want to and say like this is our race and we do things this way. Like romantic relationships, to go back to the Futurama reference, you have like a whole thing in Futurama where Amy gets with Kif and like Kif gets pregnant, not by her, by like, I don't know, is it Leela's the mom or whatever, because they touched hands when he was aroused or like in a receptive state. And then they have to go on that whole birthing ceremony thing.
Right.
But yeah, like, but even in our own culture, like what are even the expectations around romantic relationships now and how are they being morphed? If you can have the ridiculous fantasy version, but then you can have the real life version, which is like a romantic comedy where, say again.
Oh, I said romantic relationships in our own culture is going to shit. That's what's happening.
Well, there you go. Like you could get us. You could put that would be some instant tension on like writing a story that exists within that cultural change, like how people expect it should have been and how it is now. And
yeah, a movie that does that pretty well. It's called An Officer and a Gentleman. Have you heard of that movie or seen it?
I've heard of it.
With Richard Gere, and he's like in a naval base. He's going to be an officer. So all the girls want to date the officers because they want to marry him and escape the shitty town. And so everyone warns them. They're like, watch out, because they'll try and bag you down by getting pregnant or whatever. And so that's the culture like of what's happening. And then against that backdrop, he does start dating a girl and he is going to just ditch her at the end, but then he decides not to. And he walks into the factory that she's working at and he carries her out. It's like kind of cool.
Hmm.
And that man went on to be Frank Reynolds.
Irene, you got a super chat.
I have a couple, but I was going to send for later, but I guess I'll address them right now. Neanderthal 2020 for 50. Oh shit! I didn't see it. There was that much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Open your mouth when you do that, Jake.
Bonk!
There you go. That's 50. That's got to be 50 bonks.
Okay, are you done? Are you done?
She had to mute. I bet she muted her fucking.
You're making her eyes water.
I'm barely alive. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you so much, Neanderthal, for 50. Not sure who we are all, but here you go. Well, thank you for that. Even though you don't know who we are creators. We're comic creators, but we're a varied group, aren't we? I create Fiendish. Hello, I write and I draw. Introduce yourselves. Phil is a writer.
I'm Phil of Zaid Comics. I'm a writer and I work with a bunch of amazing artists to make cool comic books.
My name's Narwhal. I'm a fitness guru and dietitian.
Cool.
There you go, Narwhal. Narwhal's an artist and a writer as well.
And Jake.
I'm a genie that got freed by the third wish, and this is what I decided to do with my life.
Oh, okay. Wow, so magical. Yeah.
That's great. I like that.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's totally what you can we have all our campaigns and projects. We all have books that are currently funding. It's in the description, so if you want to check it out, that would be cool.
and we talk
Click
about
on the
storytelling. It's the creative block. Welcome to the
Oh
show.
yeah, we do this show where we're trying to talk about. To be honest, the fun thing about the show is I haven't thought about this stuff properly before, any of these topics. And I know my
Right.
first 2 shows have been kind of like hit and miss because I've been trying to even engage with the idea of thinking about these subjects cognitively instead of just like feeling projects out or whatever. Like,
Yeah, I like that we're scratching beneath the surface because there's so many surface things you can talk about with writing, and then we're digging down deeper. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, this definitely has been the same for me because I'm not a very structured person, which is weird because I'm very structured in real life. But like with writing, I like to just do whatever feels right, and that has annoyed a lot of people that or other writers that I talk to. But like it's almost like I think in this show we've discovered a lot of the times there's a reason why things work a certain way, and we always come back around to like a structural reason for why certain things work, even if we're not consciously thinking of it, because so many of the structure, it's like personality types and psychology, it's or even mathematics. Think of it like mathematics. You have these rules and equations, but it's all derived from how the world actually works. That's like a really weird analogy, but there you go.
That's the thing too. Like I don't think about hero's journey stuff when I'm writing stuff, but it interests me to maybe come up with a story in the future that does specifically follow that structure. But what you were talking about, basically, you're just telling the story how you understand how to do it. That's that collective unconscious aspect that we were talking about last week. So last week. With that Jungian, that Jungian stuff. If you have that intuition for storytelling and ingesting stories is just going to help with that. You could make some awesome stuff.
Yeah, part of it is we reflect what we've read, but also there's just a certain way we humans consume and express things. And we talked about, go watch last week's show. There's a whole playlist, and you can go. We rotate between our channels. So the last one was on it was on Jake's channel, right?
Phil's.
It was on mine.
Phil, sorry. I'm
Got
the
10
worst.
billion super chats. It was great.
It was great, yeah. But
next week it'll be on that guy's channel.
It'll be on Narwhal's channel.
Yeah, we're gonna do psychology stuff next week, which is kind of broad.
Ooh, all right. I wish I took that one.
After Narwhal, it returns to the graveyard of my channel.
Make sure you subs.
Jake is so confident about himself. But yeah, we were speaking of the collective unconscious. You know what influences that? Culture and social expectations.
Oh,
and
yeah.
someone in chat mentioned this, that I think you can also frame social expectations as the social contract. And so okay, let me see if I can tie this in.
It's going into incel territory now. Covert contracts that they set up.
No, that's like the actual term, like the social contract. It's like almost the unspoken rules of how every society functions. And if you break it, then it's like, oh, how dare you? This is not like what you do in polite society, and all these things. And like it depends on everybody has a role to play or expectations of you in society, even in societies that are iconoclast or they're like individualistic. Well, your expectation is to be individualistic, and that's celebrated, that's more rewarded. So there's always a social contract in every culture. And I think with I just realized this with the different types of literary conflict, how you can have character versus character, or character versus nature, or character versus supernatural, or character versus society. And character versus society is the character in opposition of the social contract. And I think that the culture will influence all of the other types of conflict as well. Like the reason the character is like two characters are against each other, well, it could be a social reason. Like this one character is expected to sell this other guy 50 million sheep, but this other guy wants to be a rebel and doesn't want to do it, so now they're fighting and they nuke each other.
I don't want your damn sheep.
I don't know why that was the explanation I came up with, but there you go. Like, this culture influences all of these things.
That's Rini's Joe Pistol, sheep seller. The
Yes,
sheep seller.
it is sheep selling.
I remember Joe Pistol.
Neanderthal 2020 became a new member. Thank you so much. Welcome. Hell yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Mhm.
Yeah, but like the last two on here, the superstitions is an interesting one, but like the last two kind of tie into what you just said, like singing happy birthday and everyone clapping when someone drops a fucking glass in a restaurant. I get so irritated when everyone claps. I hear a smash and I'm like, don't clap.
Opa! You people scream Opa. That's what they do over here.
No.
Why
Oh,
do you
weird.
yell
What
Opa?
are you guys talking about? You guys are crazy.
When someone like a waiter breaks, they drop something and it breaks. Someone is over here. Someone always screams Opa. And
What does
then
that
when-
mean?
Never heard of that.
It's a Greek
Opa
thing.
means grandpa in German or something like that.
Well, Opa's like Opa. You never heard that? It's Greek, so it's like
Is
What?
it the Greek version? Is the Greek word for lol? Like,
You have like
Lol
a bunch
cow.
of Greeks in Chicago or something?
yeah. There's a
Oh, the
bunch
only
of
word
everyone
I
in
know,
Chicago.
the only meaning of Opa I know is like the Korean usage of it, where you call an older man Opa, and it's like a
Here you
cutesy
go,
way to address your
Opa.
boyfriend.
Common Mediterranean and Eastern European, Middle Eastern, North African, South American, and Jewish expression frequently used during celebrations, during weddings and traditional dances.
Oh,
it's like a Jewish ta-da.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Maron says they do that in Ohio as well. Well,
Yeah, it must
cool.
be a Midwest thing.
That's so random. All right, cool.
But yeah, like, you're talking about social expectations. Those are the things that people almost seem forced to do. But another thing you were saying about how it's almost like the history that forms these things over time. Like, if you go on superstitions, it's like the history of all your myths making you behave in certain ways because you think like certain things are true, like touching on wood, like do you know more about superstition stuff with like Eastern cultures?
Yeah.
Are they more, is that more prevalent? Or?
Well, okay, so a quick way I can think of that tying in is how, when games, games and movies, everything that goes to China is censored, but in particular, they're very sensitive about showing skeletons. And it's because that's like really bad luck in Chinese culture. Like the fact that I kind of like gothy stuff and I like skeleton print stuff that freaked my mom out. She's like, that's bad luck. You're wishing for death. And I'm like, I just think it's cool. Yeah.
Instant tension in a story.
Yeah, there you go. That's
pretty good.
My home life was just full of that tension. Imagine 17 years of that. So, but yeah, that's tension derived from cultural differences. Ta-da!
Yeah, you see that a lot in video games. Like I would play this game, Smite, and it was awesome because you get to play as gods from different cultures, right? They had Hades, who had a skull face, but it was in beta. So then, as the time working on the game progressed, they got servers in Asia. So people in Asia could play the game, but when they did, they changed his costume and took his skull face away from him.
Yeah.
As to not offend those Asians.
Well, that's like Hollywood panders to the China market, and it waters down a lot of the culture. It gets boiled. If you go for the world market, it kind of is a negative thing almost.
Right. You need to. It's sort of this thing about how you can't make. Oh, here's another topic we're going to talk about someday. I claim it for next time. Target demographic. How to. Well, I don't know. I picked the weirdest.
She already hates the topic. She tried to claim it so that it was that good, then gave up on it straight away.
I know. Yeah. Did you see? I went through like the 6 stages of grief, but you could how demographic and how knowing your readership and your demographic is so important. How you can't make something that appeals to everybody. You can't make something that appeals to like both all age. I mean, you can have something that appeals to most ages. That's what all ages means. But that generally means you make something that is mainly for kids, but adults can also enjoy. That's what it means. And it definitely almost never works if you make something that appeals to both men and women. Like, you have to pick one. That's just how media works, because guess what, men and women are different. I'm sorry. And with culture, it's like an even larger sense of you need to focus your story and your marketing towards a culture, because you can't possibly appeal to everybody. And if you do, you water everything down, and your story becomes bland and safe because it's not saying anything, because you don't want to offend anyone.
Well, it's like all those different cultures' versions of polite conversation, what you can and can't do. If you make a product that's a superposition of all cultures, you're pretty much just taking out anything that would offend every single culture.
Yeah. There is always going to be something that offends somebody, and like if you globally speaking, so you're just frozen. You're like, oh, I can't say anything because someone somewhere is going to be offended. And how do you create art when you function like that?
That would literally. So I guess if all culture, if you could get the most cultural story, would be the most boring story, because it's pretty much like everything you can't do.
Or the greatest feel. Okay, we're going to be talking next time this comes to my channel. We're going to be talking about why you should gatekeep, and well, that's not really gatekeeping, but we can talk about that too. Right, gatekeep cultures and focus your story and your demographics, because fuck that. This is for everybody shit. All right, there we go. So we'll talk about it.
Have something to say.
Yeah, do it. Exactly. All right, carry on.
So from that, because it was like, well, you have all these things, how can you create tension? And I kind of just thought about, like, if you have social groups and how they can have conflicts, and gangsters versus cops, underclass versus overclass, like the serfs versus the toughs, mutants in Futurama versus normal people, like even different tribes of survivors in zombie fiction. Dwarves and elves having a thing going on, especially on this slide. Like I try to represent dwarves versus elves and their conflict in the imagery here, and then conflicts between like the older people, more traditional people, and like new generations who are like rebelling against that.
That's big.
As a really easy source of conflict. And like, what did I write? And they can be kind of like amplified and reduced in seriousness from tribal bloodbaths and law enforcement, like shootouts and shit, to something as simple as coming from a different block in a ghetto or a jock versus goth situation. But
yeah, these are good examples for
very good
for creating conflict. So know your culture. And
when you were talking about Romeo and Juliet, Phil, I was like, I got it. It's definitely that's two groups, right?
Well, also too, like the Romeo and Juliet. If you want an even more division of culture, you look at West Side Story, which is based on Romeo and Juliet. It's the Puerto Ricans versus the Irish or Italians, right? In New York. And it's the Romeo and Juliet story, but there's even a more clear division there because it's more relatable to modern times.
Actually, you're getting torn apart in chat because that's a gnome, not a dwarf.
I know. Come on.
Hey,
really? That's a classic dwarf, is it not?
Hey, it's Modesto. Modesto was the winner of the Fiendish fan art contest. That was his art. So everybody go follow him. Yeah.
What a name. Love it.
Yes, congrats.
Great art, brother.
All I have to say is the chat is you've been known.
Oh, no. Also, our new buddy Neanderthal gave 5 gifted membersps to the channel.
Moly.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
I think that deserves some boing, 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 boing. Not a super chat, but investment in funds deserves some boing.
Is it over yet?
Yes, it's over. Don't worry. Yeah, bonk.
Okay. Okay, so carrying on now that that's over with.
Carry on, sir.
But Alex VRB says zombies don't have a society. Damn it, Jake. The cool thing is, if you want to talk about culture, you can make up a story where there is a zombie society, and you can make up what zombie culture is. you could flip the whole zombie thing on its head and have the humans being the cunts that always come in and ruin everything, and they're actually trying to build a society. Like,
That
again, that's just exploring culture and a story.
So
Yeah,
what was that book? Is Narwhal here?
I think he left.
He would know this book, but the chat would know this too. Vaughn wrote a story for it. It's about a monster high school where the main character is a zombie, and I think he doesn't want to be a zombie or something like that. But it has that, so they, you know,
I mean,
it's a CG book as well.
Now you can tell him.
No, do you remember that book? Vaughn recently wrote a short story for it, and it's about a high school, a zombie teenager. It was a CG book.
Yeah, let me think.
It was the kid's name, I think. Like it was like a punny name, not Zombie Sama. Jesus.
No, that's different.
It was a very cartoony book.
Yeah, it was.
Monica
it was
did the art.
It was Rob Muerto's book. What's it called?
Rob Muerto was the character in the book too. That was his name.
Yeah, and he's the creator. He's cool. I forget.
But that would fall into that because he just created this world. I mean, it's what we're doing with Magic Cop as well. You know, giving kind of like human cultures to these monster characters in this fantasy world. You know.
Yeah, I mean, in Lost Pages, the one you're promoting right now, like, do all of the imaginary friends and fiends have their own culture as well that you explore?
Yeah, especially in this one. Like we haven't done that before, but there is like an overlord type character in her mind that is using these other inner demons as slaves to overtake Jazz's mind. So that's kind of like the made up part as well. But I always put in my Lost Pages books because a lot of the stories are based in Chicago, just kind of like iconic Chicago areas in the story. So, you know, the culture of the city is wrapped up, and I try to wrap that in the story as well.
Yeah, like you saying that, as soon as you put things in like an organization or something, like I think developing these cultures and representing them, they can almost generate a lot of novel style interactivity, because as soon as you know a couple of the rules and then you meet a character that like comes from that culture that you set up, the reader is probably already thinking, oh, how are they going to behave? Like, oh, when they come into contact with this, what is going to happen? Like it almost gives them a few puzzle pieces to play with, that when a situation can then present itself, like literally you could just have two characters meet, you know, both their cultures, and you're like, oh shit, how's this going to go?
Right.
Like a gangster meets a cop, like, and he's got like the fucking case of cocaine open, or, you know, one of the nobles is caught fucking one of the plebs in the fields, that kind of thing.
That's just hot.
Yeah, especially elf pleb.
First rights, or whatever you call it, the law of like the first night of the wedding, that fucked up shit.
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
Explain.
Prima Noctra.
Oh, Prima Noctra. There you go. Narwhal is smarter than me. I don't remember these things. The whole law they used to have.
I watch Braveheart every year. So.
Oh, okay. That explains it. So I just thought of something. The way you were mentioning zombies and the undead thing, I guess in the modern or the current sense of zombies being these kind of mindless undead things, I was like, I can't really think of them as having a culture because they're mindless, but an example of an undead society versus like a living human one would be something like Vampire the Masquerade and things that are based on, that's like a vampire society. I'm sure there are other
game?
The game which I worked on that I can't show because it never came out.
Oh,
the video game.
There's a bunch of them, right? That's a big long running series.
Yeah, they were gonna make an MMORPG and it was in development. Hell, it never came out. But anyways, that was like sort of, you have different types of vampires and they're in conflict with each other, but they kind of have like this underground vampire society, right? Yeah. That's their own culture, and that's an example of how that is sort of like this parallel society with living normal humans.
Well, the cool thing, if you did try, I mean, if people only think of zombies as this mindless thing, like zombie fiction that's been relatively exciting is like, okay, what if they weren't so mindless? So if you could, there would totally be space for a story that explores zombies do have a culture, humans just can't see it. Just the same way that you go back to fucking Ender's Game and those aliens didn't think humans were sentient because they didn't have telepathy, like maybe
Right.
you could have a story where it's similar to that. The zombies do have a culture.
Well, that's like someone just said Blade and Underworld series. Yeah, Blade.
Yeah.
Remember in Blade 2 when they go into that club and all those creepy vampires have their backs cut open and they're massaging under the skin on their back.
I actually did see Underworld. I've never seen Blade. But yeah, those are good examples too. I need to see it.
Alex says, that's not new. The first I Am Legend did it. Listen, nothing's new under the freaking sun. But it can be relatively fresh. But yeah, speaking of things that definitely aren't new, I just started to think of some like fucking common tropes from culture that are like mimetic. And the reason why I thought of these, like marriages, tribal drug ceremonies, slavery, and military command structures, like these are all things that you kind of accept. They're a normal meme that communicates with someone, but if you kind of like flip them on their head, you can have fun with them story-wise and start like generating ideas in the reader's mind. Like the one example I had is like, instead of a tribal drug ceremony being like, we're going to do this to bring you into the tribe, it's like, you can imagine having a society where they're literally taking ayahuasca instead of coffee every morning, and they're like operating on a higher level of fucking drugs, and then someone else comes into that society and they're drinking like the morning ayahuasca coffee and like basically fucking tripping out every morning. I mean, like, what?
Oh, I want ayahuasca coffee. That sounds great.
Yeah, that's like Brave New World kind of. I think their drug is called Soma. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Everyone takes it. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that was also weirdly prescient work, right? Everybody just drugged out. It's all about enjoying yourself and carnal pleasures, nothing else.
Yeah, the guy, he kind of has a crush on a girl, and he's like, whatever, like, I like you. She's like, well, we can go bang. He's like, no, I don't want to just bang. I want to like get to know you. She's like, I don't understand. What do you want? You want to bang? He's like, no.
Yeah.
You made me think, what if you did a story kind of like that nowadays with the fucking dating culture shit, and like people meet up and they're like, do you want to like actually have a romantic thing? And they're like, I don't know, I just wanted to fuck. And it's like, you could have it.
That's kind of a cool scene in Leaving Las Vegas where Nick Cage, he hires the prostitute, but he's too drunk to bang. So he's like, can we just like talk for a little bit? And she actually likes it kind of. And they bond a little bit.
And that's cultural expectations being flipped on their head and having some interest generated from it.
Right. But these tropes as well, if you don't flip them, they're ways of implanting known culture that the reader could relate to into foreign cultures or fantastic cultures or, outer space cultures. These are, iconic tropes that you can use and kind of camouflage a little bit to have your viewer relate to it and boost your theme a little bit more. So it's like, oh, these two are married, they're in a romantic bond, which we can relate to. We understand that. We understand these things, and it helps the reader understand as well.
I like that you mentioned theme, because that's another thing that obviously, culture, you can be used to create conflict like we just mentioned, but it can also, another level of that is tie into the theme of your story. Like whatever your theme is, make the culture be in opposition to or support like that theme being proven, almost like again, story first, like create something that reinforces the story and your themes and messages. And actually, like before we end, I would like to hear about how you guys, if you can think of any examples, have used that in your work. Because I also want to talk about it in Fiendish, because I built a culture and I did a lot of world building. But yeah.
Sure.
You gotta think about it. I always do comedy, so it like you don't have a serious theme. This theme is like everyone laugh, but yeah.
I'm sure there's something underneath the comedy though.
Yeah.
But yeah, these points are, I mean, I guess you could say they're tropes, but really, if you're starting out building a culture, so like when I was building cultures in my world, I kind of started from, well, I'm going to use like a real world culture as a basis, but then as I work on the world more and I understand the themes more, I'm going to kind of edit these real life culture, then it becomes something original to Fiendish. But if you're when in that process, all of these things that Jake has on the screen were things that I found really important to establish first. Like, what is marriage? What are gender roles? What are their ceremonies? Not necessarily drugs, but what do they celebrate? Because that will display what they find is important and how people live their lives. Like if they're an agricultural society, then they would follow the solstices. If they're more of like a hunting barbarian society, they would venerate like animal gods or venerate the sun and like strong nature figures and stuff like that. And slavery was very common throughout the entire Eastern world. And what is their military? How do they defend themselves? All of these things that an organized society would have, you need to establish first.
I mean, Dale A says, tribal drug ceremony a common trope? It abstractions of it kind of are. Like, oh, you have a more tribal group that's away from society, and they have some secret knowledge linked to the earth, and they like they're more open to using certain substances that like society wouldn't. Like having a culture that has a drug ceremony, like that already feels outside of mainstream society. And then like, yeah, you get to make they're using a plant, they're connected to the earth. Like it has a whole bunch of tendrils linked to it that, as Phil is saying, if you include these kind of things in your work, like there's a cluster of ideas that a reader will automatically kind of like pull up if you explore this kind of thing. That could be useful to you if you don't want to have to, like, if you just make up a bunch of random stuff that actually isn't based in, say, like tropes or real life. Like, people are just gonna be confused all the time and not really connect with like your story.
Sure.
I think it works well if you're creating fantasy, because I actually wrestled with this a bit in future. Also, Neanderthal 2020, thank you for another 50. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And no message came in.
Hail.
Okay, you can let me finish my point and then you can bonk.
I wasn't even thinking about it.
Now I'm trained. I'm traumatized
bonk.
to expect the bonk. Right, but it's in at least my personal experience building fantasy cultures, it's useful to start with something that already exists that people can understand. Because I actually worked on this pitch in college forever ago where I was like, I wanted to build this alien world, and the whole story was set in this alien planet, and it was like I made it so weird because I was like, I don't want it to have anything to do with humans. So they had like 2 suns and 5 moons, and like the planet was what do they call it, gravitationally locked, so one side faced their sun permanently, so the habitable zone was just this ring around the middle zone, and it was everything worked differently. The sun's color was different, so the colors of the comic would be different than what was on Earth. It was like wild, but I was like, okay, I thought that was a lot of fun, but I felt like that was me being self-indulgent and creating something for me, and most people would be put off because they almost couldn't relate to something that was that different. So
yeah. With I know to answer, because I had to think about it, but to answer your question, like with my own stories with Earthbound, it all takes place in a high school, and there's like a school dance, and there's a house party, and there's all that kind of stuff, and it all is, like Phil was saying, all that stuff is instantly accessible, and then you can have the sci-fi stuff on top of it. And I remember some people were curious. They're like, well, I wonder if the sequel goes off Earth, how will it stay grounded? And I remember reading a little bit about the Olympics in, like, maybe it was the Middle East Olympics, but just any Olympics in general. It's all these like primetime athletes going to one location at the same time. And they say, this is like a rumor I heard, but I think it's true, that they give all the athletes a gift basket full of condoms because they know they're all running around fucking.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a cultural thing. So, and that's like that like inspired the sequel, because the sequel is a giant fighting tournament, and it's like in a very exclusive like dimension almost that it's really hard to get into. It's almost impossible to even get out of. And when you go there, it's like a giant party kind of thing. So there's still things that are accessible, even though it's sci-fi. Kind of.
So is Earthbound 3 going to be like a big sex party in space?
There's not too much banging in it. There's just a little. Blogart gets laid. Everyone other
Blogart.
people are just talking. They're too busy catching up and stuff.
Does his new Hitler
Getting
mustache
laid.
get him laid?
Yeah.
All the girls want to fuck him because of his new mustache.
Yeah. He's got the Hitler stash rocking. That's the fuck it energy for that book. I was like, everyone smokes and Blogart has a Hitler stash. Fuck it.
Living on the edge.
Dan Lawless had a great comment. He said, some marriages start with a tribal alcohol ceremony that leads to a slavery relationship and a military-like command structural marriage.
That was great. Oh, that one. I can't find the comment.
Tying them all together.
There you go. Amazing. So you get basically the story of someone's entire marriage could exemplify culture.
I don't know if I can do a whole show on this, but like that's the power of abstraction. Like when you're making stories and storytelling, like you can take one thing and you can like formulate it to like match something else, and you can do some really cool stuff.
So speaking of marriage, I just thought of something earlier, but
she's gonna propose to one.
I just didn't know. Huh? What?
Proposing?
You proposing?
No, Jesus! It was some marriage structure in the fantasy story. With the shit, I forgot. Not Game of Thrones. I guess Game of Thrones, but Song of Ice and Fire. So, speaking of marriage, I'm not proposing to anybody. Y'all wish. With how the wildlings approached marriage very differently than the people in the Seven Kingdoms, and honestly how there was like cultural differences throughout all the Seven Kingdoms. But remember how it created this kind of culture shock, and it was the traditions of the wildlings were always in conflict with the rest of the people, and part of it was their marriage practice, not just like fucking Craster, but they had this tradition of stealing wives. And the idea was, well, you don't want to try to marry people from your own tribe. You want to marry somebody from far away, but like the best, most like manly way to get a wife was to go to another tribe and kidnap her. And the woman was expected to fight the whole way, and the man was supposed to like be able to control her and keep her bound the entire way and bring her back to the tribe. And if he succeeded, then she's his wife. And remember when John went to the north and like I guess spoilers, but everybody knows by now, like became one of the wildlings, and Egret was like, well, you capture me, I'm your wife now. She was like into it because that was her culture, and it was just like, well, that was sort of a way to prove like this is like a strong manly man, and the woman is supposed to fight back as well, so that means she's also strong. And this is this whole cultural thing where you also don't like fuck your cousin because you're going to another tribe. So anyways, there's
that's cool. Yeah, that is cool. You get that's like it helps the world building when it kind of puts a logic to the world building, and it gets kind of fun.
Right. It basically is. It's like me go to other tribe, me club hot woman, me marry her. Ooga booga.
Yeah, like in Carnal, the Blorks have a culture where if a hero comes to town and kills a guy, like one of the males, like he now owns his wife. And so like a hero can come through and like kill all the men and like go away with like, a whole harem of like Blork slaves. But the thing is, you'd think they'd all be bummed out about it, but literally every time a hero comes near, they're like, oh my god, this could be the one. Like they're cheering on the stronger male. It's like a take on the hypergamy of modern dating culture. They're like, yes, kill my fucking husband, like I will go with the stronger guy.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's perfect. I guess would this be spoilery? I guess not really. So I won't name names, people probably already can figure it out. In my story, a lot of the world building and the cultural structure in Fiendish is based on like different it's almost like somewhat racial segregation, definitely with the Dev and humans. The Dev are slaves to humans, but the Isfoliad, which is the race with green hair, which is what Ragna is, they have like darker skin and green hair. They're kind of mixed with these higher humans, almost like my version of elves, but not really, because they are actually humans and they're more magical and shit. So they dominate the upper echelon of society and the shamanic class. And I have a character who is I have two characters who it's like they're supposed to be for each other, and I want to I hope I do it right, because my intention is if they could look past their own pride and prejudice, they would be perfect for each other. But because one of them is Isfoliad, one of them is human, and they're sort of like this bitterness. Oh, you're a different class, and the other one who was spurned by the Isfoliad is angry because he's like, well, I gave so much to you. I thought we had love, but you spur me just because you're kind of racist. And it's this whole fucked up thing that I think exemplifies the themes
Social
of the story.
expectation.
And yeah, because racism is one of the themes in Fiendish. But I'm not beating you over the head with it. This is the right way to create a world where racism exists, but you're not like lecturing people about it. And also it ties into like the culture.
It's
Yeah.
fun racism.
Cool. Yeah, I had that.
Right.
I guess for should I go over my thing and my story? I guess.
Yeah.
You're just talking about. In Magic Cop, there's a couple cultural things, I guess. So the main character, Ignatius, Iggy for short, he comes from a long line of Magic Cops, which is like the elite. You're a wizard detective, and sent because of his family bloodline. When he gets out of the academy, he gets straight to detective, and so everybody else in like there's like a bunch of people in the police station that are mad at him because of that, because they're like, oh, you didn't do your time, you didn't put the work in, you just because you have this blood and cultural background, you get straight to the top of the station. So that creates conflict just because of who his family is. And he has to prove himself on top of that because everybody's like, oh, this kid just walked in and he's now in charge of things. So there's that. Also, so like, because it's like a magic world, we have mermaids in the world, but the mermaids live in the sea, right? In the first book, there's the villain, the bad guy, is trafficking the mermaids onto land and getting them plastic surgery so they can get legs to walk, and then in return he's selling them to like prostitute rings so they could work off their legs by being it's like sex trafficking.
That's great.
Damn.
So,
yeah, that's
yeah.
good.
That's like a whole like culture we, I guess, invented for it. So that's the plot of the first one, because a mermaid winds up mutilated and dead. So they investigate that and find out that whole ring is going on.
You've made me. You can also explore the topics like that are like a bit like hardcore, and if you do them in a more fantasy-ish way, like the mermaids with legs, it's like it makes a little bit easier to palate. But yeah,
that definitely. Like, it's funny because Magic Cop is just such a colorful and zany type world, but the plot is pretty hardcore, like with those aspects. It's like, oh, this prostitution. The second one's about the bad guy, and the second one is making a new drug called pixie dust that is hyper addictive, and when you snort it, you get magical powers as well. So,
temporary ones, like while you're high.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. So
it's you're just taking like grounded, realistic. This will tie into the last frame as well, which is awesome. I'm glad you brought up those. And like, this slide is just like how all those cultural expectations are always formed somehow. You know what I mean? It's just the interactions between people over history. Like, I was gonna have instead of evolution, because of the first one's historical events, I was gonna have a photo of a Porsche 911. But anyway, instead, I put evolutionary features, like, yeah. But
Forming expectations.
because we've already kind of covered this a lot in what we've already said, so there's nothing to really say about it. Like, every time we've spoke about stuff, it's like hinted into like how they're formed. But yeah, like, you know, Phil saying that thing, the last slide, is literally just, you can take with the power of abstraction, you can take things from real life, put them into fantasy, but then you can also like maybe take fantasy stuff and make it real. But yeah, like, it's like a berserker orc taking a drug to enrage during a battle. You can have like a Yakuza member taking a bump of coke before a fight. You can have elaborate fantasy weddings, but then like in real life, you can have like Eastern European weddings. Like, I literally went to a Ukrainian wedding where it was like over a course of days, and there was fucking party games and everything. It was like, what the fuck is happening? But it was so fun. Like, you could base a whole story in that. All citizens being branded with their home sigil of their hometown as like birth certificates and passports. Hansi corrupt royal guards is like the fucking TSA. And then like ancient curses is the fantasy version of you got the AIDS.
Yeah, this ties into how, you know, how some people theorize that monsters and all these cautionary tales in mythology are from real life fears, and how I can't think of. Oh, okay. Like yeah, superstition, like how superstitions are also, they're based on real life things that you have to watch out for. And
warning.
yeah, like people, we were talking about
don't go out into the sea because the mermaids will get you.
Yeah, that's another thing, how in especially Northern Europe, but all over Europe, especially Northern Europe, evil water creatures are very common, and that's kind of self-evident because there was a lot of sailors in Scandinavia and even the British Isles, a lot of sailing and a lot of living in the marsh or in the water, so that was a cautionary tale to be careful of those lands. And creatures of the night, like every culture has like a fear of the night, but in this ties into culture again. But everything kind of does, though. It's really cool how so in like Scandinavia and British Isles, there's a lot of like water creatures, but you don't really, as far as I know, you don't get that so much in like the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. But what they do have, they have the jinn, and as far as I know, there are certain types of jinn. A lot of them are like sand spirits, and so they have spirits that are unique to the desert, and cultures from other parts of the world wouldn't have that because, you know, they're not surrounded by the desert. And it's like some of their mythology stems from like desert mirages and other things and phenomena that only happen in that landscape.
Well, it's like in England we have so much mist up in the mountains that it's like the dragon's breath. Like when I was a kid, we'd drive up into the mountains and my dad would say, oh, we're going up into the dragon's breath, as if they'd be hiding on the mountains, and all the smoke from the fucking flames would be like coating the hills.
Environmental influences that as well. All of these things co-influence each other, and they they come together into a cohesive whole.
Yep.
Nice. Wonderful PowerPoint, Jake.
Yeah, I think the totally last point on that environment thing, you can have legends that cause people to prepare in certain ways as well. Like we have to get ready for this event that's going to happen at this cycle, and it's like a weather event, like cataclysm stuff. And
yeah, I have a good example of that. So in the Dark Tower series, I'm reading so the fifth book or whatever. It's called Wolves of the Kala, and there is a town that every 10 years, 15 years, wolves come and take the children of the town and just like steal them, right? And so that is ingrained into their culture now. So the book is leading up to that. They're like, oh, this is going to happen. We need help. Are we going to sacrifice the kids, or are we going to fight this time? And then so they have to, the main characters of the book, the gunslinger and his mates are going to help against the wolves. So that's like an ingrained cultural thing that's specific to this, fictional town that happens, every 20 years, which you made me think of that.
You could totally also explore that cultures have those things, but they're not actually real or based on anything, and they're kind of like more generated to control people, even potentially.
Right. Well, you figure out that the wolves aren't wolves. They're these men that wear wolf masks.
Yeah.
And I think they're not even men. I think they're robots,
Uh-huh.
like cyborgs or something that ride on horses. They just call them the wolves of the Call. But so that's like a made up culture that Stephen King made for this fictional town. Then another example of kind of cultural differences in the story. There's a character named Susanna or Susan, and then Eddie, and they're lovers, but one is from New York in the 1980s, and Susan is from the 1950s. They do some like dimensional shit, but she's a African American from the 1950s, and he's a white guy from the 1980s, and there's a conversation that they have where he calls her colored, and she gets pissed at him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. That's what we call, that's what we refer to black people in my time. I thought that would be more polite than saying the N-word." And she's like, "I'd much rather be called that than being called colored." So
Really?
the cultural differences of the decades that these people
I didn't know that was a thing with that word.
The same thing will happen with person of color in 10, 15, 20 years. That's going to be, people are going to look back on the phrase person of color as like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's already really absurd. These things shift and change, though, right? So that's sort of, it proves the absurdity of moral puritanism.
It's a linguistic arms race.
Yeah, language will always change. So linguistic arms race, I like that.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's like totally every single fucking slide. We got to the end. And that was very enjoyable talking about this. I'm glad you guys kind of like, I'm glad it worked. I'm glad that one worked.
Me too. Thank you for preparing the PowerPoint, and I hope it didn't suck. I wasn't like super prepared, so I hope you guys enjoyed it as well, because I was like so busy this week, and I was like, please, okay, somebody have something prepared. I need to get these inks done, and I had a few points jotted down, but like nothing else.
We all did it.
You got those prints?
Oh yeah. So check this. So these are the prints that we made. I made a limited number of them that I'm gonna have Simon
see
sign.
what that text was.
Beautiful. So these will be available on the campaign probably next week. This week.
Awesome. We're gonna start any fights today. That's amazing. So everybody go back to Lost Pages 3, and the links are in the description, and I'm sure my amazing mods will be posting them in just a minute as well.
Aviator Surge says you're missing the any questions slide. Yeah, this is my TED Talk. Any questions?
Any questions?
Any questions, guys? After a big, long, fucking multi-hour discussion, any questions?
All the questions. Can you just go through that again? Let's just go through. I think I missed it. I have bad short-term memory. Explain all of it.
Next week on Narwhal's channel, we talk about psychology stuff.
Hell yeah.
I am looking forward to that. Yeah. I think that kind of ties into the whole character archetypes thing, but it's definitely also a different discussion, and I really like talking about psychology. So
what kind of thing do you want to explore next week with Psychology Novel?
Yeah, I got to think about that a little more, but I know it kind of ties into dialogue too. Like I might look at a few lines of dialogue that are very psychologically charged, and we can try and break it down.
Cool.
And some other stuff.
There's another subject. We can talk about dialogue.
Narwhal's we talked about dialogue. Isn't that what Jake's was?
It was.
That's great.
I forgot.
The whole idea is I don't
Oops.
listen to Rini, and instead Rini didn't listen to the whole fucking thing.
I don't listen. Don't listen to you a lot, Jake. So
That would be a whole topic.
sorry.
Imagine if someone tried to do that.
Yeah, but it actually wasn't exactly about dialogue. It was
Yeah.
something else, right?
Something.
It was, but it was similar enough.
Yeah.
Also, I
no-
just don't. Yeah, I don't listen to Jake. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Narwhal's kind of the wild card, so I'm excited for next week's show.
Yeah, Narwhal always. It'll be the most random topic, but Narwhal will make it an awesome presentation. So you never know. There's gonna be a twist. There will be a twist.
Now that it's been built up, I'm gonna do nothing.
You're just gonna. You'll have no preparation at all.
Be a recap on the raccoons or whatever.
Yeah, we'll just talk
Yeah.
about raccoons.
Yes.
Talk about anthro and furry characters and the whole show. Dago Solo for 10. I was saving this for last because it was a question about my work. Thank you very much, Dago Solo. Selfish, I know, and am fine with, but can you put me ahead of everyone else on your cover commission list? Want to have something to take to Tampa? I could try to have something ready for Tampa, but I have to. Like, Fiendish is my priority, and I have to finish Cecil's cover. But after that, I will get on your thing right after that. And yeah.
For people who don't know in the audience, this is the one guy that pretty much buys every single piece of Irene original art in every auction for like hundreds of thousands of dollars every time. And
Not hundreds of thousands.
no, hundreds thousands, not hundreds of thousands. And the only way that I ever managed to win a piece of Rini art at a fucking auction is he had an Amazon delivery at his door during the bidding, and then I managed to have an uncontested bid. Like, yeah, that guy has a lot of Rini's
I
art.
appreciate you. Thank you, Dago
Hail
Solo.
Dago
You're an
Solo.
amazing support. Yes, hail Dago Solo. Hail. I
Love it.
think, yeah, I truly appreciate your support and all the support of everyone, but definitely Travis. You're a champ. He's bought so much. I think like 80 or 90% of all my auction art has gone to him. Oh, speaking of auctions, Ethan's having an auction on Monday. Hold on, let me get a piece that I
What?
just finished.
Yes.
Yes, he is. Hold on, I'll be right back.
You got to auction your mask watercolor, Phil.
I'm working on a one right now. Check it out.
Oh,
nice.
shit! See, you could totally auction that.
Well, Batman. Biz Batman.
Yeah, that's sweet.
I think Tech Zombie asked me to draw a Batman for him. I've never drawn Batman before, so
really? I bet this auction's only for the kings.
yeah. So screw you, Phil.
My God. Brian Blue Thunder says psychological storytelling, like the Oedipus complex and Oedipus Rex. That would be awesome. That brings up. I love mythology. I would love to do a show just on myths. Our favorite
I was
myths.
literally
Yeah.
that Oedipus complex thing. I was literally forming the overarching like heaven and hell story for like Connell's world, and there's a whole Oedipus thing with that.
Oh, awesome! That's great.
Yeah.
All right, Irene, let's see it.
Here's on Graybeards. This
Oh
was
yeah, this is great.
thank you. This the topic was Jim Henson, so it's the girl from Dark Crystal. That's what I drew. Hour and 30 minutes, guys. The whole thing. This was a 5-minute drawing.
It wasn't 5 minutes. Go fuck yourself. What the?
Yeah.
No way. 5 minutes.
I
to
like the
draw
Vulture
that.
guy.
Hold
I've
on.
never seen Dark Crystal.
Ugly things are really easy to draw. Just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Really. She took forever though.
So
But
cool.
I'll have this
on
draw.
Kings.
Yes, as far as it should be on King. So Ethan's gonna be having that auction, and I'll have that piece available. So everybody, be there.
I have
Are you doing
pages
it good?
to sell, and I can't go on Kings. So
No,
Can you put them up on
You'll
your
probably-
campaign?
He might put the link out for other people.
look at the booty.
Yeah.
Can you not? Can you put this stuff up on the campaign, Phil?
I could. I have pages up there already, so I was going to put these up if those sell. So,
Oh, okay, cool.
Looks great. Yeah, I'm gonna fill in the corner. I'll just have a whole page of like Dark Crystal doodles,
cool.
and I'll try to have something else. I don't know if I'll have time, but I'll try. So yeah.
Film it for a YouTube short if you do.
I should. You're right. Thank you for reminding
idea.
me. Yeah, I need to make more YouTube content. I always forget to record my stuff. But yeah. All right. I think that about does it. Good
Well, yeah.
show.
Nearly 3 hours.
Good show. Excellent. We had like how much? We had a lot of people watching.
Yeah, we had almost 300 at our peak, I think.
We still have
We
like 198, 100. It keeps
Yeah.
changing right now. That's a lot of
Everyone who
people.
stuck around while Jack was going, you are the real G's. Like
You
we
are-
Thank you.
kept like 120 for a while whilst Jack was going, so that's absolutely amazing. You guys
Yeah.
rule.
No, for a while it was around like 140 even while Jack was going on. So I appreciate it because I know Jack is a big show. So thank you very much. And when's the next Ali and Rainy show? It should be tomorrow. I don't know whose channel is going to be that. I think it should be on Ali's channel, maybe. I don't know. Or it might be on mine. I'm such a mess right now. I'll tweet about it and you'll find out then. But yeah, it'll be tomorrow.
Go find another channel and tell them we sent you. Thanks for coming on and hang out with us, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
go
you
back.
all.
Go check out all our links.
Yes,
sign up for
sign up.
Connell the Barbarian. Sign up.
Sign up.
One more quick round of this. I'll have to drag this on forever. We must promote. Everybody go back. Fiendish Chapter 2. Strangers. I'm going to change that title because that's going to be a thing now.
Awesome.
So get on that. It's going to be coming down. And it went up again. Thank you so much.
No,
Yeah,
Hell
it's going to be
yeah.
coming down in just a couple weeks. And we're in the last stretch. Go back. The Lost Pages 3.
Lost
Which is
Pages
Phil's
3.
book.
Yes.
Yes. Beautiful, amazing book. Crimstone by Zay.
everybody, when you go here, watch the trailer as well. It's awesome.
All right. Yes, it is an awesome trailer. I love like story-based trailers. You have like character narration. I think that's really engaging because that's what really hooks people. And Cerberus by Narwhal.
Loyalty after death. Alex BRB.
I love that. I like how chat comes up with better pitches than me half the time, and it just makes me really angry. But that's a great pitch. That's amazing. Check it out. It's a reverse John Wick, basically. Loyalty after death. I like that. And sign up for Carnal the Barbarian, which is James.
Blocks, Zelfs, fuck your buses, and I guess now Jizzards. Not the goblin. And
Yo,
yeah,
Jizzards.
sign up. Go shove your email address in there. If you want to get a free cool thing, you'll have to be signed up to the mailing list. It's not just going to be secret links where you get to like share it or nick it off someone else who already signed up and then get the cool thing anyway. You'll have to be signed up to get the cool thing. Could be a pin, could be a trading card, could be like personalized little sketch thing in your book. But yeah, go check it out. It's going to be genuinely what it came from the chat. Pretty much British 70s like sexy comedy stuff, but in a fantasy setting and with a slightly dark tint. But it's cartoony and stuff, so it's like Phil was saying about like the mermaid thing and exploring those themes in a fantasy setting makes them more palatable. I'm hoping to do some dark stuff that ends up being like surprisingly funny because of the setting and the visual style. But yeah, go sign up.
Sign up. This is gonna be fucking hilarious. You should theme this like more sexually. I don't know, make the email address bar a penis shape or something. So you can push this a little more. I encourage it.
More penises. Okay, Reedy.
Yes, that is my request. More penises.
Oh, penises.
Dicks everywhere. Sign up for Connell the Barbarian, everybody. All right. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. I love you all, and we'll see you next week on our Walls channel for another episode of The Creative Block.
Yes.
Bing! All right.
Bye,
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.